Following is a new 7 Black History special, Black Slaves, Red Masters. Hello everyone, I'm Sam Ford. Earlier this month in our 7 Inside Reports, I took a personal journey to look at a largely unknown chapter of Black history when my ancestors and thousands of other Blacks were slaves, not of the whites, but of the Indians. Well, a lot of people responded who'd missed some of the segments and who wanted to know more about the subject. So today you'll see it all and more, and get your pencils. At the end, we'll have not a test, but an address and phone number where you can get more information. Every summer at Tahlequah, Oklahoma, the Cherokee Indians sponsor their Trail of Tears pageant, the story of how the U.S. government robbed the so-called 5 civilized tribes of their homelands in the South and moved them by force to Oklahoma. They don't tell about the thousands of Blacks the tribes brought with them, their slaves.
My mammy and pappy belonged to a part Cherokee named W.P. Thompson when I was born.
The woman reading is my sister, Elaine Ford Staton, but the words are those of our great-grandmother, Phyllis Thompson Pettit, whose Georgia-born parents were brought by the Cherokees over the trail. Johnson Thompson was Phyllis's brother.
Before that, Pappy had been owned by 3 different masters. One was the rich Joe Van, who lived down at Weber's Fall, and another was Chief Lowry of the Cherokees.
My cousin, Maurice Shepard, reading the words of his great-grandfather. The interviews were conducted 52 years ago here at Fort Gibson, Oklahoma, when both my great-grandmother, Phyllis Pettit, and her brother, Johnson Thompson, were in their 80s, part of a federal writers project. Now, both of them are buried in this cemetery. But after I read their words, I was set on a mission to find out how my family became slaves of the Indians. I learned that beginning with the administration of George Washington, it was the policy of the U.S. government to civilize the Indians by teaching them modern farming techniques.
To adopt agricultural practices that patterned after the whites. And one of those in the South was slave trade.
I don't ever talk about it very much because I think it's a very shameful part of Cherokee history, and so I've purposely avoided involving myself in that whole issue.
While the current chief may be ashamed, at the Cherokee Museum today are slave bills of sale, including one for 3 slaves bought in 1841 by then Principal Chief John Ross. The chief and his brother Lewis were among the biggest slaveholders in the tribe. Indeed, many of my mother, Kathleen's ancestors, the Rosses, were owned by the chief's family.
They were Southerners. They adopted Southern institutions, Southern dress, Southern black slavery.
But one characteristic they did not like was Southern greed for their land. By 1830, through wars and treaties, the 5 tribes had lost most of it. Then they were all ordered to move west to Oklahoma. 4 of the tribes left, but the Cherokees took their case to the U.S. Supreme Court and won. At least they won the lawsuit. Then the man on the $20 bill stepped in.
And President Jackson essentially told the Supreme Court, you made your ruling in favor of the Cherokees, now, try to enforce it.
As president, Andrew Jackson controlled the army, so 14,000 Cherokees and 1,600 slaves were herded to Oklahoma, some groups in winter, with about a quarter of the Indians and blacks dying along the way.
You got plenty of Indians right today don't like Andrew Jackson in this area.
84-year-old Luther Scales, who describes himself as 1/4 black and 3/4 Indian, is president of the Coweta, Oklahoma Historical Society. He remembers stories his Creek Indian grandfather told him about the removal, which was devastating for the Creeks as well.
He said the roughest part of it was crossing the Mississippi River in a boat.
How so?
Well, man, the Mississippi River, down there in Arkansas and Mississippi, when you're talking about a mile or so across the river. And then in a boat, as swift as that water running, well, you got problems.
Once in Oklahoma, the slaves were put to work, raising cotton, building the new nations. The Merle home, which still stands outside Tahlequah, Oklahoma, was built by the Cherokees' black slaves. And should you think the Indians were much kinder masters than the whites, listen to Granny Phyllis's words in the interview about my great-grandfather.
My husband was George Pettit. He tell me his mammy was sold away from him when he was a little boy. He looked down a long lane after her just as long as he could see her and cried after her. He went down to the big road and sat down by his mammy's barefoot tracks in the sand and sat there until it got dark. And then he come on back to the quarters.
Oklahomans reenacting the Civil War Battle of Honey Springs. When it actually occurred, this was the Creek Nation in Indian Territory, slave territory, in which all of the 5 civilized tribes had signed treaties supporting the South. And the battle actually looked much like something out of the movie Glory, except it wasn't the 54th Massachusetts, but the 1st Kansas Colored Regiment that saved the day. Because of fear of attacks from nearby Kansas, many Indian slave owners fled south.
I can just remember when Master John Harnish took us to Texas. We went in a covered wagon with oxen and camped out all along the way.
My sister, Elaine Ford Staton, reading the words of our great-grandmother, Phyllis Pettit, a girl at the time of the war. In ex-slave interviews conducted by federal workers during the Depression, she told how her brother, Johnson Thompson, and her parents were sold from one Cherokee master to another and taken to Texas.
And Pappy done the driving of the oxen. I was set in a wagon and listened to him pop his whip and holler.
On the square of the old Cherokee capital in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, stands a monument to Cherokee Confederate war dead. But the war here was confusing. While Cherokee Chief John Ross was arrested by the Union Army and shipped to D.C., his mansion was burned to the ground by Cherokee Confederate General Stan Wadey, who just didn't like the chief. And while Creek Chief Samuel Chakotay fought for the South, Apathalea, another Creek chief, fought for the Unions, his slaves at his side. In any event, when the war was over, the tribes who'd all signed Confederate treaties were in trouble.
The United States government informed the 5 civilized tribes that all previous treaties are null and void. And the first thing to be accomplished is to sign a peace treaty.
The new treaties meant the Indians lost more land. And since this wasn't legally considered the United States, Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation had not covered Indian slaves. So the treaty said they had to be freed.
One of the things the federal government required in those treaties was that these tribes adopt the blacks as equal members of the tribe, their former slaves.
One day, old Master stayed after he ate breakfast. And when us Negroes come in to eat, he said, "After today, I ain't your master anymore. You all as free as I am." We just stand and look and don't know what to say about it.
The words of her brother, Johnson Thompson, read by his great-grandson, Maurice Shepard.
Pappy wanted to go back to his mother when the war was over and the slaves were freed. He made a deal with Dave Mounts, a white man who was moving into the Indian country, to drive for him.
Granny Phyllis described a harrowing trip in which they had to fight off wolves with fire from their camp, a wagon journey over land and water that lasted 5 weeks.
When we would come to a river, we would cross ferry boats. But me and brother rode on a bed in the back of the wagon, and when we were crossing a river, father would make us lie down and wouldn't let us look out. He was afraid we would fall out in the river.
Finally, they arrived back to Fort Gibson in northeastern Oklahoma, where their father's mother was working as a cook for the U.S. soldiers.
My grandma, Phyllis Harnish, was the mother of the Colored Baptist Church on 4 Mile Branch, east of Fort Gibson. She organized the church and was head of it as long as she lived.
Since the Cherokee tribe owned all the land, as new Cherokee citizens, the family merely picked a spot. After Granny Phyllis Pettit married, her first child was my grandmother, Lutetia, whose 3rd child was my dad, Sammy. Pettits and Fords still own this land today. Our Black History Special will continue in just a moment with more about Black slaves, Red Masters. The ex-slaves were called freed men, and the freedmen of the Indians had reason to dance. No, they weren't rich, but since they were now citizens of the tribe, and the tribe owned all the land, there was no need to sharecrop. Just stake a claim, build a cabin, start a farm. And there was the black vote. Witness this Seminole election in which they counted one candidate's supporters on the left side of the street, the other candidates on the right. To gain control of the Cherokee capital in Tahlequah, chiefs like Lewis Downing campaigned heavily for the black vote, as did Chief Spaichi for control of the Creek capital in Okmulgee.
The Creeks appointed and elected blacks as judges, attorneys. They were private secretaries. They were members of the council. And of course, the 3 black towns in the Creek Nation had representatives in both the House of Kings and House of Warriors.
Silas Jefferson was even elected one of the Creek chiefs and was among the delegation any time that the Creeks had business in Washington. Since there was none of the lynchings or terror of the white South, Indian Territory became a mecca for blacks, even though many never gained citizenship. At least 25 black towns sprang up, some still around, like Taft, Redbird, and Tallahassee, where on a warm day, they still bring out the kitchen table for a game of dominoes.
I'm out of here.
What? How you get down?
I'm out of here. Glad you did.
There were black lawmen among the Creek Nation Light Horse Police, deputy U.S. Marshals like Bass Reeves, who killed 14 outlaws without ever being wounded. And there were outlaws, killers like Cherokee Bill, part black, part Cherokee, or the Buck Rufus gang of Creeks and Creek freedmen. And there were the rowdies.
If they got enough whiskey in them while they shoot the town up.
You ever had to run from a shoot up?
I have crawled on the bed.
My great-great-uncle Willis was among those rowdies. You may recall my great-grandmother Phyllis Pettit's story of how her husband's mother was sold by his Cherokee master.
He looked down a long lane after her just as long as he could see her and cried after her.
While George Pettit turned out okay, his brother Willis spent 1877 in the National Prison for shooting up the capital of Tahlequah. 5 years later, it was more serious. In March 1882, the Cherokee Advocate reported in both English and Cherokee, murder trial in Tahlequah, the capital, the Cherokee Nation versus Willis Pettit. The transcript still exists today. It seems 2 weeks earlier, Willis was having an argument with his wife, Julia, when his mother-in-law, Margaret Bird, said something, so he shot her. It all happened in the home of a sick woman that the 2 women were visiting. Among the numerous witnesses was one Henry Bowe, who testified that the day of the murder, Willis had tried to sell him his house and his hogs for $65. He said his wife had quit him. I said to him, "That won't make you sell your place. She'll come back again." He said to me, "That's played out." And he cursed and said, "I'm going to kill Margaret." While Willis did not take the stand, he had a witness, Maria Shepherd, support his defense that Margaret was trying to kill him. "As I passed her along the road," testified Maria, "she said she would have Willis put away in less time than 2 weeks. But the Cherokee transcripts say the prosecutor asked Maria, 'What relation are you to Pettit?' 'Not any.' 'Is Willis not in the habit of coming to your house often?' 'He comes there sometimes.' 'How come Margaret to tell you about this?' 'She did not like Willis and did not like me.' 'Why is it that Margaret Bird did not like Willis and you?' 'I do not want to tell about that. I am not going to tell it." The Cherokee Advocate reported, the jury returned a verdict of murder, and Willis, that is his name, was sentenced to be hung until he was dead on the 5th of May next. At a hanging in those days, the public came to watch, and the condemned man was among those expected to make a speech to warn some young person against making the same mistake. The newspaper reported Willis went to the gallows laughing. As for his last words, he said he'd made a mistake. He meant to shoot his wife, Julia.
One,
The Oklahoma Land Rush was the beginning of the end for the 5 Indian republics. 1889, Congress had given to anybody fast enough to grab it much of the land confiscated from the tribes who'd supported the South in the Civil War. 9 years later, Congress made the Indian governments irrelevant by taking title to the land they still held and sending in the Dawes Commission to split it up and allot it as private farms to the individual Indians and freedmen who were members of the tribes. At mass gatherings like this, they were interviewed to determine whether they were legitimate tribal members or squatters. In the Cherokee Nation, folks like my grandmother, Letitia Ford, had no trouble proving their legitimacy and received deeds to their land. She received 60 acres. My grandpa, John Ford, was a non-citizen but had access to land through Letitia and their children. The Fords, John's parents, Harry and Zerilda, had migrated from Kentucky in the 1870s, but Zerilda had died, and Harry had remarried a Creek freedman woman, gaining access to land as well. But some of the blacks had no connections, had not married citizens, but had established farms on tribal lands. Now, somebody was about to receive an allotment that included their farms. In the Tallahassee community in the Creek Nation, many of them turned for help to great-grandpa Harry Ford, a Baptist minister, and, says his 85-year-old surviving son Andrew, a prominent farmer.
My dad had a big barn, low full of hay, corn. He once had sharecroppers.
But he didn't have gas lights, and that proved tragic when he came to Washington, D.C. that day, seeking someone in authority to help his neighbors keep their land. The October 19th, 1906 Evening Star reported the story. It said he took a cab to a hotel called the Philadelphia House at 348 Pennsylvania Avenue, which is where the National Gallery of Art now is. It said he asked questions around the hotel. Quote, the visitor said he wanted to meet some Baptist ministers in this city as he thought they might assist him to transact some important business in which he was interested. Then he went to bed in a room which had a gas light. My Uncle John Ford picks up the story.
Instead of him turning it out, he blew it out, and he became asphyxiated. Then the rumors are that he was really on to something, you know, that was going to benefit blacks, and maybe it was foul play.
Somebody killed him.
Yes, now that was a rumor.
The D.C. death certificate said Harry Ford, age 70s, cause of death, asphyxia.
He had $1,000 more when he left home. When he got it back, he didn't have a dime on him nowhere. Naturally wouldn't have. In the cheapest casket they could buy, and shipped him back to Oklahoma.
As for the blacks Harry was trying to help, they lost out. But all of his and his second wife's descendants received 160 acres of Creek land. They became targets for ripoffs by land speculators. And when oil was discovered on Harry's grandson Dan's land, he was essentially kidnapped.
Dan, they run him way out towards California trying to make him sell his place and all that. They called him land grafters.
Dan was no fool. He refused. Andrew said when oil was discovered on his allotment, he had no problem with land grafters, but later both he and Dan lost their wealth.
That's when they got Dan Tucker. The banks went busted and cleaned our ass out.
The end of Indian territory meant the end of an era, of 40 years of tribal citizenship for blacks, the end of centuries of self-rule for the proud tribes, the Choctaws, Chickasaws, Cherokees, Creeks, and Seminoles. The descendants of those black slaves and red masters after this.
All right, peace. What's going on, fam? It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, AKA Mr. Just a Fact. Let me stop this video. Let me stop that right there. Let me get my bros up in here. Smash the like button, family. Why does my camera look crazy? Let me get my bros up in here real quick. If you would like to contribute to the platform, please use the super chat. If you would like to contribute via Cash App, use the $, use $BETHEPOWER. If you would like to become a monthly recurring or make monthly recurring contributions, you can sign up for the Patreon. The link is in the description of this video. So let me get my bros in here real quick. My camera just looks crazy for whatever reason. We got my brother Josh and my brother Ali in the building. Tonight,
Peace.
we're going to talk about this Native American stuff. We're going to talk about the craziness. And we've, coming out of the Moorish movement, have battled these frivolous teachings for years. And I believe that the only reason why they have maintained is because we fell back from them, because we were beating these people up left and right. A lot of the beef that I had with Ali Muhammad was over these frivolous claims, and this led to him trying to disrespect Noble Drew Ali because he had no other recourse. He had no other way to back up his teaching. So instead, he thought it would be best if he just attacked Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish movement. So, you know, we kind of fell back, family. We fell back, and this is why things, I believe, this thing is still going on. So I'm gonna get into some stuff, but I'm gonna let brother Josh or brother Ali come in and say some things. I'm having some camera issues as well.
Go ahead, Ali.
Okay, it's important. Let me just say this about my position on this, right? I don't take an absolute position on what people are and are not, right? I'm not going to do that because I've, done, like you've done, we've spoken earlier about our DNA testing through a couple of agencies. I have ours through ancestry.com. My wife has hers DNA testing through ancestry.com. You did yours. I don't remember what company you used.
23andMe.
23andMe. You too, Josh, right? 23andMe.
Yeah.
So, and the interesting thing is, and I'm gonna say this so the audience hear it. So y'all don't think that these DNA testings companies are just some kind of white man trick to tell you that you're not Native American. Our family's DNA came back with some Native American DNA by way of Mexico. My wife's ancestry came back with a very small amount of Native American, as they call it, DNA by way of the Andean territories of South America. So I think yours did too. Am I correct, Naheem?
What? That it did.
It has some Native American.
Oh yeah, 1.1%. I'm gonna pull that up.
Right. So when we start talking about doing your ancestry, because my challenge to these people, particularly the Dane Calloways of the world, would be to do that, right? Don't think that they're going to tell you that you don't have any Native American ancestry, because that's not true. Ours came back with some of that in it. But the point is, what makes up the majority of who you are? Is it Native American, or is it of African ancestry? Is it of European? See, the point is, the descendants of slavery in America are a mixed tribe of people. You're a mixed tribe of people who are amalgamated with and mixed with multiple ethnic groups from different places, whether it's Native American, African, or European, and even some Asian. You're a mixed people, right? But what they're doing is they're taking this absolute position that we are not of African ancestry. We have no African ethnicity within us at all. We were completely indigenous and native to this land, which means, and when you say that, you're saying that all of the multiple lineages of your family, because you have to understand, you have multiple lineages. You're saying that you have no African ancestry in any of your lineages, and you're going to say to the point that whatever African ancestry that you do have is outweighed by the Native American ancestry, that you have more of that than you have of any African ethnicity within you. But instead of taking any kind of DNA test to see what's being said about your genetic makeup, you're going off of, my grandmother said this, my grandfather said that. Like one girl told me on Facebook, her third great grandmother, which is her great great grandmother, was an Arawak from the island of Haiti. Then she said her third great grandfather, who married her third great grandmother, was a mulatto Irishman. I thought that was an interesting terminology, a mulatto Irishman. What makes him a mulatto Irishman? Why is he an Irishman? Why is he not a mulatto? Nevertheless, this is what she's saying. But I want to say something to people who think like that. Yeah, I understand ordained ministries. You're saying the term Africa, right? So that's kind of like a word game. But we'll get into that in a second.
Indeed.
Native.
Oh,
but
no,
wait. Let me just say this. So when she talks about her third great grandparent, it's important to understand that she named two people. One that she knows to be an Arawak and one that she knows to be an Irishman. Understand, you have 32 great grandparents, and you just named two, while you don't say anything about the other 30 or the ethnicity of the other 30 because you don't know it. Or either if you do know anything about it, you want to cling to the Indian part in order to negate the African ethnicity that is clearly within you based on the phenotype that you possess. We could see you. We see what you look like. Your phenotype does not match up to the Indian phenotypes of the pictures of the people that you all keep showing all over social media. Your phenotype doesn't match. See, so even if you have it in you, like the DNA test that came back for my family or your family or Josh's, it's to a small degree, and they're going to say stuff about sample size, right? Sample size. Oh, well, it's a small sample size, etc., etc. The fact of the matter is your answer, and even if it is a small sample size, it's up to you to prove this lineage, particularly if you're talking about pre-colonial America. How do you prove, even if you, let's just say for the sake of argument, that you had Native American ancestry, Aboriginal ancestry, Indigenous ancestry, pre-colonial America. How do you prove that? Through documentation? See, they don't prove it through documentation. What they start doing is they start using cartoon pictures that Europeans drew of dark-skinned people when they came to the Americas. That doesn't prove your ancestry. What it proves is that white people drew pictures of people that they saw as dark-skinned and called Negro de Terra. That's what it proves. It proves that they saw dark-skinned people and they called those dark-skinned people Negroes de Terra, as if Negro was their real name. And you take that and you run with it because you believe that somehow you're not African and you refuse to do any kind of testing to see if you have any connection to the peoples of West Africa. And that whole thing was a lie. But go ahead, we're going to go further. You go in, Josh.
Indeed. Brother Josh, you got anything you wanted to add?
Yeah. What's going on out? Okay. Yeah. What I wanted to say was, we talked about this earlier, Ali, and what's really problematic to me is how people are trying to take away. They don't know that they're doing it. They think that they're doing something that's adding to the power, but they're really subtracting from our power or dividing our power up, and to where we lose. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's you think we're getting an advantage, but you're really creating a disadvantage that you just may not have the vision to see yet, because you're thinking that you can get you personally and whoever just can follow behind you, and they're thinking some type of small little benefit or side benefit or loophole. But in the end, for the group, it's a disadvantage. Now here's what I mean. When our people were taken and put in, when I say taken, you could say sold. Somebody took us, whether it would be African, whether it be European or whoever. Somebody took us and they sold us because we didn't volunteer, right? They sold us into slavery, and they put us and they brought us to what is the United States of America, continental United States. They brought us to the islands, whatever. We got over here. They bred us, right? So they really they separated us from all knowledge of prior ethnicity, prior culture, language, religion, all these things. We know this, right? And so they essentially made us into a new tribe. So that's why when people are making the claim, Black folks or they won't say ADOS, but they'll say that the African Americans or Black Americans or they'll just say we, right? We were here first. We are actually the Native Americans. We are actually the indigenous people of the land. But then you got to understand, like, who is we? When you say we, are you talking now? Are you referring to the tribe of ADOS? Are you referring to the tribe of those people who were taken and pretty much forced to be a separate tribe? Are you talking about? So then, what you're doing when you say we were actually Native Americans, now you're forcing us to have to go back and not be a tribe anymore. You're forcing us to have to divide up into a bunch of other subgroups and smaller subgroups, because ADOS, the Native Black Americans, are people who were forced to be enslaved. We had to have our own tribe, right? Native Americanness is not a tribe. That's not a tribe. Like, there's a bunch of different ethnic groups up under that doesn't even apply to just American. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't even apply to not only what is the continental United States. It doesn't apply to just the North American continent. They even use that term for South America. So how is that a tribe? So what is oneness is the fact that we can come together and use the term we as a tribe of the tribe of people, that we can advocate for things that pertain directly to us, i.e. reparations. We can move as a block politically. We see, when you use the term Native Americans, you're doing the same thing that they try to do with Latino, which is group a whole bunch of people who may not have agreed, who may not agree politically because they have different modes. Some of them have access to whiteness, some of them don't. They have their own class issue. They have their own issue with different treaties, and some of them, did some atrocities to our people. So it's a real, it gets real murky and mucky when you try to do that. And really what it is division. When we trying to multiply our efforts, you're dividing the efforts, and you think you're doing, addition. No, it's subtraction by addition when you do that. So I don't think y'all indigenous, fantasizers have thought this thing through when you want to look in terms of remedy of the group of our particular tribe. Now, if you're looking to see how you can get ahead as an individual or people that can follow behind you, just say that, but stop using the term we and what we were, because so I'll just leave it at that. You can pick it up, Ali.
Now, what's interesting is what you just said is very interesting, right? We were talking about the tribe of we, right, earlier today, right? Because the way they talk as if we is an actual tribe. We this, we that. We were here before the Europeans. We this. We're indigenous to the whole planet. We, right? But at the same time, they'll tell you, right? Like one person just said, prove to me that I'm African, I'll wait. And somebody else said earlier that you can't tell people who they are. Yet these people are trying to tell all of African America, so to speak. I'm using African America as the name of the people, or ADOS. They're trying to tell all ADOS people that we are indigenous to America. We did not come from Africa. So the very thing that they're trying to tell you can't do to them, they're doing to you. They're telling you and the whole ADOS clan that you did not come from Africa. Us, the new tribe of we was all here, right? How can you make an absolute statement like that without doing the knowledge, doing the science to the multiple lineages that each one of us has as ADOS people? How can you do that? I just said earlier that if you start from the third great grandparents, great grandparents, you have 32 of them. You all are looking at 1 and 2 people and saying that, hey, because I found out that there's an Arawak somewhere in my family, somehow I am Arawak now. That one Arawak person outweighs the other 31 great grandparents that I had. Get the heck out of here, man. That's not how lineage works. There are multiple lines of family, multiple bloodlines that come together, that converge over time to make you who you are. It's not no one thing. You can't do that. That's why y'all scared to take DNA tests, because the DNA test is going to confirm exactly what we're talking about. You don't want to take it. You would rather say it's a scam. It's a white man scam, and it's a trick a trick that they put together just to tell you that you're not Native American. That's the whole point of the trick, is to tell you that you're not Native American.
They all colluded.
Yeah, they colluded.
Even
Yo,
the brother,
every company.
What's his name? Kittle, ancestry. Yo, look, man, we're gonna gyp these people, man. We're gonna tell them that they are largely sub-Saharan African people, where their DNA traces back to, you know, as opposed to telling them that they're Native American. So we're going to flip it, right? So whereas many of them are 1.1% Native American, or no, 1.1% sub-Saharan African and 89 and 90% Native American, we're going to flip it on them. Y'all all agree? Bet. Like these people are
and keep in mind, we talking about only 13-14% of the population, and they're gonna have
all right. So look, this
multi-million-dollar investments in that.
This is what I want to do. I want to pull some things up.
Yes, please. Me too. Before we let
just gave y'all a primer. We set it off with the video. Some people said all they hear is talk, and they said Dane Calloway shows proofs. If Dane Calloway knows who I am.
Dane Calloway doesn't show proof. Dane Calloway doesn't show proof.
He doesn't.
What Dane Calloway does is he uses European scholars, right? Let's see. Here's the trick. Europeans are the liars and the deceivers who hid history from you. Yet every scholar that he used pretty much is a European scholar, right? And I guarantee you, we can use the same sources, the same exact sources that Dane Calloway is using to prove that Dane Calloway is wrong.
Fact.
He's wrong. And Dane Calloway is making a broad general statement about the tribe of we in America. Talking about we ain't from Africa. We are from America. Who the hell is he to tell me who I am? The same way y'all talking about we can't tell y'all who y'all are. Who y'all to tell us who we are?
All right, let's do this.
Or define what we is. That's what we're trying to say. We trying to get when you're saying we're talking about, well, when I say we, I'm talking about those people who are called Black in America or African and American in America. I don't know what y'all talking about, and we know for a fact that those people were enslaved, whether they were. And whether you want to say they were here or not, we know what the facts are. But whether you want to believe they were here before and they didn't come on slave ships and all that kind of stuff, either way, these people, that's the people I'm talking about. Is we? I don't know who everybody else is talking about.
All right, so I want to read from this definition: escapism. Right, and it's important that we read this. Escapism, noun. The tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. So it gives an example. Virtual reality offers a form of escapism.
Hey, listen. Now, listen.
We got to get into the rudimentary phases
Yes.
of this before we go further. What you was gonna say, Ali?
I'm looking at some of the comments, right? Lady Spade says, I stand with Dane, right? Which is, listen, a man or woman can believe whatever they want to believe. It's what you can prove that's really important, right? And y'all are not proving anything, right? The only thing you're doing is you're throwing up cartoon pictures of what Europeans drew of the people they saw when they came here, right? Because, and the reason that you do that, let me tell you why that happens. Why are you using those cartoon images of the pictures Europeans drew? The reason you're using those pictures is because, you know, before the Europeans started talking about Negros de terror, you have no records of anything. So you got to now use pictures of dark-skinned people that Europeans drew. You got to use pictures of Olmec heads. You got to use pictures of dark-skinned people from out of Mexico. The reason you're doing that is because you have no records that connect you and your family directly to any of these people. So you can say that it's pseudo. You could say it's pseudo, but what I would do is challenge you, Mr. Indigenous American Seminole Indian, is to prove your ancestral lineage to the Seminoles. Prove that. Don't tell me that it's pseudo. It's your job. If you think that what's being said is fake, you prove your lineage. And don't just sit around talking about, well, my grandmother said this and my grandmother said that. I don't know nothing about your grandmother. That's your personal business. And whatever your grandmother said doesn't prove anything. A man can say anything that they want to say. You can say anything you want to say. That doesn't prove nothing. So when Dane Calloway start talking about what we are, that doesn't prove anything to me.
Facts.
And no scholar, understand something, right? Let me just say this one thing. There is no scholar of American history, African history, who are saying any of this, who says what Dane Calloway says. There is no scholar who says that Native Americans account for the 4 million freedmen and women who were emancipated in 1865 by the 13th Amendment. There is no scholar who says that. Nobody says that.
Let me say this. I remember my dad used to always say, my dad, my uncle, oh, you know, your grandma grew up on a reservation in Oklahoma. So she, you know, she's part, I don't know, Choctaw or one of those, Cherokee, I don't know, one of those. Okay, so I do my little DNA. It's not like 1/5 or 1/2 or 1/4 of it. Man, there's nowhere to be found. In my DNA. Now, I haven't studied how that any of that stuff works. But all I know is, and I think my dad did it, and his DNA, you know, his DNA it didn't have hardly no Native American in it. Mine was like 0.3 or something like that. 0.3%, and it didn't say Native American. It says East Asian and Native American, something like that, Asian Pacific Islander, some wild. No, now how was that the case when my grandmother is supposed to grew up on a reservation, and her mother is supposed to have real long hair and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, no, we got European, so we may have some what they think is Native American features with finer hair or whatever the case may be. That's because we come from the institution where they bred people and they had their way with people. And there was no Trojan factory that helped them to not slip up and have babies with their slaves. You know what I mean? It was no.
Let me go into this real quick, bros.
Go ahead, please.
Because I wanna tie some things together, starting from this escapism definition. And I read it, and let me read it again real quick. The tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. For those of you who came late, we played a video tonight, and it was from a series of Red Masters, Black Slaves that can be found on YouTube. El Mahib said, so we not autochtons. What is it? Autochtons? That's hilarious. I've seen that term a time or two. I've used that term a time or two.
Yafa Bey helped to popularize that term, autochton.
So what are these harsh realities that this escapism we're looking for is trying to get us to separate from? So Dane Calloway, and we can go deeper than Dane Calloway. He's just the latest in the iteration of those who push this particular fantasy, right? Taj Tariq Bey, Alim Bey with the guitar, Ali Bey with the
Ali Muhammad,
honor, ISIS.
You mean Ali Muhammad?
Yeah, Ali Muhammad.
Who said Ali Bey?
I mean, my bad. Ali Muhammad.
Amaruchi Ali, that's who you're talking about.
Amaruchi Ali, Namataga tribe of the ISIS, Aboriginal, Indigenous people from Philadelphia. Are you from Philly, bro? So, right, we got all of these different people that come from right here. Their parents come from here. Their lineage comes here. They have no stories. You may find an individual or two that has some lineage, but again, this person would represent an outlier. This person doesn't represent the whole, because we have stories, we have testimonies of our people who have been enslaved. The videos that we played earlier were testimonies from those that were enslaved by what are called the 5 civilized tribes.
That's right.
And I believe that was probably why my grandmother and her mother was on that reservation. Because they was probably descendants of the people who were freed after the South freed their slaves. And keep in mind, we got to go through that history real quick.
Yeah, those tribes. Pull all of that up.
Yeah,
and that was said in the video. That was said in the video that after the Emancipation Proclamation and the passage of the 13th Amendment, the United States government had to go back and renegotiate with these tribes so that they could be freed. And what happened was the United States government said, well, y'all could keep them on the reservations with y'all. So they became citizens, if you will, of these tribes. And some of
them did. Some of them did. A lot of them, they didn't allow them to get citizenship.
Right.
They fought that all the way till 2017. The Cherokee, I believe.
So I want to get into the fantasy phase. Like, we're gonna get into the discussion phase. Let me just run through some of this stuff real quick, and we gonna get it in. I want to go to Turtle Island, because this is what these guys are doing. They must not know our background, right? So there's one guy said trading war stories. I asked him if he wanted to come on. I'll send him the link. Come show and prove, right? You either embarrass us or you get embarrassed. Both of those won't be true. So at the same time, he says, bro, really think we all came from Africa. Matter of fact, let me put that up on the screen real quick. Bro, really think we all came from.
See, that kind of statement is ascientific.
That's right.
Nobody said, whoever this tribe of we is that y'all keep talking about, this we thing, I don't know who we are, right? Tribe of we, the tribe of we all came from Africa. Nobody said that. Nobody said that. And see, to say that way means you don't understand lineage. You don't understand that you have multiple lineages in your family that tie you to multiple ethnic groups, some of which, based on your phenotype, if you had a picture up that we could look at, based on your phenotype, would dictate that some of your ethnicity comes from out of Africa. But you're going to deny that because you want to claim to be some kind of Indian, which is fine. That's your business. I can't tell you who you are, but your ethnicity and your phenotype is going to dictate it. Your DNA is going to dictate it. That's why you're scared to take DNA tests. And you'll make every kind of argument that you can to get around doing that. But that's fine. And I say African ethnicity. We're not talking about African nationality. And by Africa, we're just using Africa as a continental name to identify the inhabitants of that continent, the same way y'all use American to identify the people when y'all go to the 1828 dictionary that the Moors put y'all up on. Because understand something, before the Moors started dealing with the 1828 unabridged Webster's dictionary, none of y'all knew nothing about that. None of y'all knew nothing about the American definition in that book that said that the people were copper-colored people found here by the Europeans. Y'all didn't know that until Taj Tariq Bey and them came up with that. Dane Calloway co-opted that message from the Moors. Y'all better believe it. The history is documented throughout all kinds of videos you can pull up on YouTube. Moors are the ones who put y'all up on the etymology of this stuff. The etymology online dictionary. It was the Moors who came up with that. It was Noble Drew Ali's teaching who told you that Moors was living up and down the Mississippi before the Europeans got here. So what y'all are doing is y'all are co-opting a message that came from the early 1900s out of the Moorish movement and twisting it into some kind of indigenous Aboriginal argument. You don't know what you're talking about. But go ahead, bro.
Facts. They don't know we've been doing this for a long time, debunking this very topic right here. So they can't use that we all think we come from Africa type stuff on us. They don't obviously know us, some of these guys that's in the chat, and that's all right. They'll know us after today. So I want to get into, remember, escapism spoke about escaping reality, usually by engaging in some form of fantasy. So here's a form of that fantasy. They call this place Turtle Island. Turtle Island is nothing more than a tale of Native American folklore about how this land of America came to be formed, right? So it says Turtle Island is a name for the earth or for North America, used by some indigenous and First Nations people and by some indigenous rights activists. The name is based on a common North American indigenous creation story. All right, so I want to get into, let's get into the Iroquois version of this creation story. According to Iroquois oral tradition, the earth was the thought of a ruler of a great island which floats in space and is a place of eternal peace. Sky Woman fell down to the earth when it was covered with water, or more specifically, when there was a great cloud sea. Various animals tried to swim to the bottom of the ocean to bring back dirt to create land. Muskrat succeeded in gathering dirt, which was placed on the back of a turtle. This dirt began to multiply and also caused the turtle to grow bigger. The turtle continued to grow bigger and bigger, and the dirt continued to multiply until it became a huge expanse of land. Thus, when Iroquois cultures refer to the earth, they often call it Turtle Island. This can also be found in Hinduism and other religions, that the belief that the earth is supported by a gigantic turtle. And it speaks about the Seneca language, et cetera, et cetera. So we see that this usage of the name Turtle Island is based off of a fantasy, a creation story. So see, what we're trying to do here is close up the gaps. We're going to make it uncomfortable for you. So if you try to say, no, we're not even really Americans. The real name of this place is Turtle Island. Okay, well, according to the history, Turtle Island is a myth that people, a muskrat, went to the bottom of the sea, gathered sea dirt, brought it up to the land, and put it on the back, I guess, of a floating turtle. I'm guessing. I don't know, because was the turtle situated on land? And then it said that the land kept growing and growing, or is it that the turtle's shell grew and grew and we're not really stepping on earth, we're stepping on dirt-covered turtle shell? Which is it? Which is it? So
another thing is, that doesn't mean that they're talking about America. Most of the time when you talk about a creation story or how land was formed, they're not talking about that land and where they're on. They're talking that land to them where they're on. They're talking about the whole world, the whole entire earth. So it wouldn't be America. It would be the earth, the whole earth, because it's not
Well,
like they would know how to map the whole globe anyway.
In some
Exactly.
of the creation stories, that's exactly what they mean. They mean the whole earth. Wherever there's a land at, they refer to that as Turtle Island or the Great Turtle, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And so let me just say this, right? Who knows what the various multiple tribes on this landmass called it before Europeans came? Like,
That's
what was
right.
the name of it before America? And understand, America is a Latin construction. It's a Latin construction. The Spaniards, the conquistadors, when they came, they constructed the first map to have the name America on it was in 1507, I believe it was. So before 1507, before the Europeans came to colonize the place, who knows what the multiple tribes of people that were here called this place? See, the only way you can know that is to consult with all of these different people and see what their history stories tell you, right? Y'all are talking about Turtle Island as if Turtle Island is representative of all the over 500 whatever odd tribes of people that was here speaking their own different languages, and they got their own customs and cultures and all that stuff. Same thing with Africa. We know that Africa is of Roman construction, right? Same with America and Africa are both of the Latin construction. That's why they both have the ICA or the CA on it. Some people say America is named after Amerigo Vespucci. We have information, you know, that disputes even that. We could bring that up on another program. That's for another program. Right. And
That's the fallacy
so,
of we. That's the fallacy of we.
Yeah, but see, and see, I'll say this: everybody's not from the tribe called Amaru either.
That's right.
The Amaru cut, right? So that's the whole other story, right? It's not Amerigo Vespucci, but it was a tribe of people called the Amari or Ameri, and the Europeans named the land the ICA or the CA, the land of the Amaru, Amarika, Amarika, right? We have the book on that too. How America got its name. We found that years ago, even before they started circulating the video talking about how America got its name. We had that book a long time. We already know about that. The Amaru people. But go ahead, Josh. My bad.
No, I was gonna say that's again another one of the fallacies of we. See, when you say we, you're talking about the tribe again that was basically created on the plantation when they bred us on the plantations and disconnected us from all prior knowledge. So when you're trying to take that and you're trying to push that you're trying to say you're trying to put a really modern tribe on an even more ancient, time frame and then you're trying to blanket our tribe with a whole nother ethnic group's culture and creation story. Like it's just it gets real messy. It's not really a logical, I don't think these people thought this thing out logically. I think it's more of an emotional type of reaction to some type of otherness. Now, I don't know exactly what you wanted to get into now, but I would like us to explore or just talk about what is it that they're looking to get? Like, what is it?
Because we're going to get to that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
All right.
I just want to debunk a couple of more myths, and we're going to get into that. We're going to just have a discussion. Because I want to go to this 1828 dictionary. People need to see this thing. People need to understand just how silly this claim is. Then we could, talk about that. Then we'll go into Dane Calloway's website. And there's something that I want to point out that just proves that this guy is just a pseudo, and we can touch on exactly what you were just talking about, Josh, because we need to touch on that. It needs to be expounded on, because what they're getting at is escapism. That's clear. It's clear. That's why the arguments that they're making in the chat makes no sense. Somebody just said, so Aztec, Maya, and Olmec history is not real. Like
Nobody said anything about that.
nobody said anything about that. So now they're trying to make arguments.
That's what they do. That's what they do. They jump around all over the place. But go ahead, let's read this.
Indeed, man, it's crazy. So this is the online version of Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary that all of these Aboriginal people cite. And if you see the thumbnail of this particular, and I'm do I have that? I think I do. I'm gonna pull that up as well. But I wanna read I wanna read this definition. It says American, an adjective pertaining to America. Okay. But American as a noun, meaning a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races, found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. And there's many different ways that we can chop this up, right? Easily. Originally applied to the Aboriginals.
I like the word applied. I like that word applied because I want to know who was doing the application. Who was applying this to who? Who did this?
We know Blumenbach. This is one of Blumenbach's designations.
Well, I'm saying who, like, yeah, Blumenbach, definitely with the color-coded, right? But what I'm saying is, who is it that was applying the name America? Was it the natives people? Was it the native people, or was it the Europeans who was applying the name America?
Who applied America? Was it the people? Exactly. So let me come out of this for 1 second. I want to pull something up just to give context, right? Because they claim that this dictionary is proof. And I'm going to go back to that dictionary. But let's pull this up.
Noah Webster's, this is for Brandon Galloway in the chat. Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary, right? We used to use the Noah Webster's 1828-1913 unabridged dictionary. That's the one that the Moors wind up bringing to the forefront, and then everybody started jumping on it with this American copper-colored thing. But Moors pulled that information up first. Believe it wasn't Dane Calloway. That information was already circulating by the Moors before Dane Calloway co-opted the message. But go ahead, bro.
Now, again, we go back to the definition, right? What the insult, this is the insult, because we remember when I confronted Yafa Bey about this same wacky line of reasoning, and everybody like Red Pill and them tried to come at my neck and make it seem like I was wrong. She took a penny and said, put a penny on your skin and tell me what they mean by copper color. The problem with using the penny is that if the penny is brown, it's because it's dirty. If you clean the penny, it's going to show just like the image that you see on your screen. Now, who looks copper colored? The brown brother or the brother to the right? You see, one of the things that Dane Calloway did, and he's pseudo. I wish he would confront somebody directly, but he won't. He hides behind his screen. If what you stand on is the truth, you should be able to, like what I stood from the Moors to this reparations push. I went in every lion's den, like, what's up? I'm right here. I heard somebody say Lord Abba. What we doing? What we doing right now? We debating? I ran to the smoke. I ran to it. These dudes is in the no smoke section of conscience. They're in the no smoking section, bro. So what this pseudo Dane Calloway does is he'll say, look at my complexion, and try to compare that with the copper colored people, right? But obviously, that's not what's meant. And we're going to prove that. We're going to prove that. So you can see the image of someone that would be considered a Native American, closely resembling what the Europeans called copper colored, as opposed to one of us, because my skin is not copper. And if you take a brown penny right now and simply clean all of the years of that caked on dust and dirt, you're going to see that it looks exactly like the image that's shown on your screen. Corey de Vega said he told Sarnetta he will only debate for $10,000. Okay. No problem. No problem. Let's go back to this dictionary.
That's what Dane Calloway said.
Yeah.
How much money is going to be in the pot? Because I already know he ain't going to win the debate.
No, he's not going to win the debate.
Who trying to put up?
Yeah, let's put up. I'll bet it. Of course, we're going to put the 10,000 up. I'm going to put a little piece of money on myself for anybody that's trying to do some bookie action over and under. This debate won't go past the first round. So this is what I want to do. I did this years ago, and I'm glad that we're here because some of the proponents against our reparations push and those who use the terminology American descendants of slavery are our own people who are, in fact, America's descendants of slavery, pretending, fantasizing that they are Native American Indians descended from so-called copper-colored people. So let's punch in black, and let's see what comes up in the same 1828 dictionary. Okay, let me see. Make sure I didn't pass it. In the original link that I have, no, it's not, excuse me, it's not black, it's Negro. My bad. It's Negro, not black. Negro. Now, it is remarkable that our common people retain the exact Latin pronunciation of this word, nager. It says a native or descendant. This is the same dictionary, family. This is the same dictionary. A native or descendant of the black race of men in Africa. The word is never applied to the tawny or olive-colored inhabitants of the northern coast of Africa, but to the more southern race of men who are quite black. Again, those of us who've done DNA tests, right? 23andMe, et cetera. Well, he means where we come from, the sub-Saharan region of this area. So let's punch in one more. This is the same dictionary. Let's punch in more. And let's see what comes up for more. Let's go to the noun. Greek, dark, obscure, a native of the northern coast of Africa, called by the Romans from the color of the people. Mauritania, the country of dark complexioned people. The same country is now called Morocco, Tunis, Algeria, etc. So how is it that these people never thought to look up? They never thought to look up the other words in this dictionary like Moor or Negro. With descriptions that clearly identify us, clearly, as opposed to the copper-colored natives who the name America was applied to by the Europeans who came here. How is it?
Well,
killing them.
And it's crazy. And so Brandon says, review the Dred Scott case. It's Dred Scott, not Dress. Dred Scott case of 1852. It wasn't in 1852 either. So here's the thing. In the Dred Scott case, the term Negro, because he thinks we don't know this, the term Negro and colored people were terms that were also applied by the European. Understand, this is Europeans doing this stuff. Europeans called the people that they encountered, the dark-skinned people in America, they're the ones who called them Negroes de terror. They're the ones who, in the Dred Scott case, there was Europeans on the bench, racist Europeans, who were calling certain people colored people and Negroes. Yes, some of the native people, they decided to call Negroes and people of color. Some of them they did call that. But that's neither here nor there. See, like what you're missing is, at the end of the day, what this really comes down to is what you can prove about yourself and your family, right? And then if you do that, that's fine, that's your business. But you and Dane Calloway can't tell all African Americans that they ain't African. You can't do that, right? And I'm not saying that we're African, we're Americans. But when I say African, I'm merely speaking about the ethnic lineage of the people called American descendants of slavery, the descendants of the freedmen, African Americans, Negro, Black, colored, descendants of slavery, whatever you want to say. All I'm talking about is your ethnic lineage. You can't tell somebody what their ethnic lineage is not. So y'all are saying we can't tell you what you are, but you're trying to tell us as a group what we are not. And you're not doing it with any proof. That's the point. It doesn't matter what Justice Taney, not Cheney, Justice Taney said in the Dred Scott case. It doesn't matter what some racist white person from the Confederacy had to say about Black people, about Native American people. It doesn't matter what the different names.
He hasn't read the Dred Scott case. He doesn't even know the name of the people. He's saying Justice Chaney. He just said you're missing the point. 2 reasons he didn't settle in cases that no status at law, bringing a case to federal court as a Black person. Bro, like, I mean, you know, and I don't say this to sound condescending or mean, but you seem like you're not well educated, brother. And it may help you if you may go back, take you a couple GED classes and just get your mind back right on American history, because a lot of what you're talking about is just not right and exact. And a lot of our problem is based on the fact that we are not properly educated. Like, it is what it is.
Corporations becoming citizens has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Like, come on, man, that stuff is besides the point.
That's irrelevant, ordained.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
Why y'all? They're not used to dealing with people like us. They're used to dealing with the cat. Like I said, some of them probably don't know who we are, right? Because we fell back from just even in the Moorish movement and doing battle with a lot of these fake Aboriginal, Indigenous, sovereign, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know.
Yeah. So what else do we want to touch on? I wanted to say this. I think it's because we talked about this earlier. I think it's important for people to understand that there's actually 2 different arguments at work. One argument is that we were on this land after the continental divide, right? So there's 2 arguments happening. One is the Pangea, the supercontinent called Pangea, separated. And when it separated, the people that was on this side of the supercontinent stayed here, and the people that were on that side of the supercontinent was over there, right? So when Pangea separated and America separated from what is now Africa, the people were already here when Pangea separated and the Atlantic Ocean was caused by this great earthquake. Understand something, Pangea broke up. According to scientists, Pangea broke up something like 200 million years ago. The Atlantic Ocean was formed like 180 million years ago. This is what the scientists are saying. We're not talking about nationality. We're talking about ethnicity. We're talking about tribal affiliations, ethnicity, bloodline, stock. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about nationality, which is a political designation. We're not talking about that. Stay with what we're saying. Ethnicity. Your multiple lineages that connect you to multiple ethnicities, whether they be of African or of American origin.
U.S. national, trading war stories. What's a U.S. national, Ali?
A United States national is somebody who is lower than a citizen of the United States. A citizen is the highest political status you could have in the United States.
That's right.
Citizen of the United States. A national is somebody who doesn't have the access that a citizen has.
That's right. And cannot become president.
Can't become president. And it's a lot, some of the democratic process you can't even engage in as
That's
a
right.
mere national. So it's a lower status in terms of your relationship to the United States government, even though you still owe allegiance to the government. So again, the point is ethnicity. It's not nationality. We're not talking about that. Yeah, a naturalized person is someone who becomes a citizen of the United States. He's a citizen and a national. But that's through the process that Congress establishes, because Congress, according to the Constitution, has the authority to establish the rules of naturalization. That's what it is, right? So once they go through the process, they become a citizen and national of the United States. They just can't run for the highest offices of the land, like president, vice president, and so forth. And I think even certain other congressional seats, I think that they have to be here for a certain amount of time before they can even run for those seats. So it's a reduced status. A national, not a naturalized citizen, but a national is a reduced status. It's below that of citizen. Go ahead, bro. I don't want to keep you. Go ahead.
Oh, definitely. I just want to get to one more thing, and then we could just go in, and then later on I'll pull up my DNA test, because I want to prove a point. So let's go to this is just one of the most hilarious things that I've seen.
And for those who don't know and don't believe and think that national is a higher status, go and look up the definition of national as it relates to the United States government. You don't have to take my word for it. Go look it up, because we've done this stuff years ago. A lot of stuff is new to people.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost boring going through this stuff all over again, to be honest with you. But there's a need for it, because it's picking back up, and we need all hands on deck. No more cowards. People like Dane Calloway is a coward who is attracting cowards because people are scared to get their hands dirty. They want to somehow shirk the responsibility that comes with being a freedom fighter in the United States of America. You see, we got the spirit of our ancestors that fought in all of America's wars, particularly the Civil War, particularly for the freedom of our ancestors. We got the spirit. We got the spirit of a Prince Rivers. We got the spirit of a Harriet Tubman. You have the spirit of the cowards, the people that didn't want to do nothing, that ratted those freedom fighters out that were trying to get free. That's the spirit that you all come in. And so those of you who are attracted to that nonsense, you're trying to run from it. Most of you don't even like your own people. Most of you don't like your own people. Point blank, period. You want to identify with something else that is a little less shameful. So you find escapism. You find an escape hatch that you can run to. So whenever something goes on, you can say, well, we not that anyway. If we of the tribe of we would all wake up to the fact that we are this, knowing that we're not that. Dane Calloway knows this stuff is pseudo, but he's made a life and a living off of it. Not just him, Taj Tariq Bey, Aline Bey with that Washington nonsense. All of this stuff is trash. So let's get into this. I'm just here to make you think. This is Dane Calloway's handle. Like, I'm just here to make you think. If anybody thinks that this stuff is real and legitimate, there's something wrong with you. Something wrong with you. Okay. This is from Dane Calloway's website, December 2016, December 23rd, 2016.
Hey, real quick, bro. I just wanted to say something about that. Yeah, making you think. That means use your imagination. Because he's not saying think based on no facts. He's talking about using your imagination. That's thinking too.
That's right. That's right.
So this is a broad statement, a broad generalized statement about the tribe called African Americans. Go ahead, bro.
That's right. Now, peep what he does. Oh, this guy is funny. Malcolm X once stated Aborigine or Aborigine, which means what? Black folks. Then he later went on to say, you and I are Aborigine. Now, we got to go back and contextualize what Malcolm meant by that. But on every instance that I know, Malcolm spoke about being a descendant of slaves in America. He spoke about his father being a Garveyite. Like, what? We don't know the context of what Malcolm meant by this, but we know that he didn't mean that we are Native Americans. We know that for a fact because we study Malcolm. We read his autobiography. We play clips of Malcolm. We play clips of Malcolm on the last live stream. We know what Malcolm thinks or thought and taught. He said Malcolm X stated that the rock landed on us after he returned across the waters because he learned new things. This is a lie. This is something that Dane Calloway made up. Malcolm X said he didn't go across some water and then realize that Plymouth Rock landed on us. That's not ever the context in which Malcolm X spoke that he went somewhere across the waters first. When he went across the waters, the only revelation he came back with was one
about white Muslims.
Yeah, what you said, Ali?
Go ahead.
Right? He said he learned that the rock had truly landed on us and that we were from these lands. Malcolm never said that. He never implied that we were natives here. Let me read. He says, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also stated in his I Have a Dream speech that we are held in exile in our own homeland. Now we have a lot of scholars out there. Notice he points out, he distinguishes scholars out there and individuals are missing the point. Is he the individual that are missing the research of the scholars? Curious. It continues. How can you be held in exile in your own homeland without it being your own homeland? Dane Calloway says, right? So he goes on to say, and I'm going to get back to, I want to go to Martin Luther King, and then we're going to open this thing up. The tens of millions of Black Americans, or rather Indians, both of these are two European designations for our people.
Right, but Indian is fine with Dane Calloway.
Say
Indian is fine with Dane Calloway, but
yeah. It says the tens of millions of Black Americans, or rather Indians, who disappeared after 1492 did not all die in the Holocaust inflicted within America. Hundreds of thousands were shipped to Europe and Africa as Indian slaves. The whole slave trade story was given to all of us in reverse. Hear this, family. Hear the nonsense that Dane Calloway is teaching and many of our people are buying. The cowards, scared to fight against this system. And so they, or the racists and the devils in this system, I should say. And so they found an escape hatch to crawl into. He says the whole slave trade story was given to all of us in reverse. A mass colony of Africans were not shipped from Africa to America. The truth is that Black Indians were shipped from America to Europe. They were then shipped from Spain to Africa as a commodity for African resources. So the Indians were then shipped from Spain to Africa.
And then keep going. These Black
Indians, now mistaken as African Americans, were back to America and classified as quote unquote African slaves. This part of our history is what the school system fails to mention.
Oh my God.
Program. Now I want y'all to come in, but I want to read something real quick. I want to go back to King.
Yeah.
Let me read this, and I want to go to from where do we go from here? Chaos or community, because what King says is important. See, this is what happens when you're studied and you're versed in the elders and the leaders that a charlatan like this would try to cite to bolster his bogus case that he never gives any references for. He just makes these blanket statements, and for whatever reason, people just buy this stuff. The cowards. And that's what I'm going to call you people. You are cowards. He says Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also stated in his I Have a Dream speech that we are held in exile in our own homeland. Now we have a lot of scholars out there and individuals are missing the point. How can you be held in exile in your own homeland without it being your own homeland? So let's go to where do we go from here, chaos or community, and read something real quick from our great elder, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Oh, what in the world happened to? Oh, I got a keyword. Hold on. I had it all keyed up.
And
okay.
Go ahead.
I got it. Okay. Let's start from here because he says the Negro. No. Let's start from here. The Negro's greatest dilemma is that in order to be healthy, he must accept his ambivalence. I would, in today's case, call ambivalence cognitive dissonance, the holding on of two conflicting beliefs. Let me continue. The Negro is the child of two cultures, Africa and America. Okay. He say nothing about no Indians. Remember, Dane Calloway denies the fact that we're from Africa, but he tries to use Dr. King to bolster his pseudoisms, his pseudology. It continues. The problem is that in the search for wholeness, all too many Negroes seek to embrace only one side of their natures. Some seeking to reject their heritage. Some seeking to reject their heritage are ashamed of their color. Dane Calloway in several videos, you'll hear him talking about how light he is and how light other people are, as opposed to dark, I guess. Peep the psychosis that a sick-minded individual uses to infect the minds of our people. It says ashamed of black art and music, and determine what is beautiful and good by the standards of white society. So here, King is speaking about the culture. Here, as America's descendants of slavery, the descendants of the freedmen in America, we developed our own culture out of America.
That's right.
Got cats like, what's that guy? Asir, the Duke of Tears, that runs around with feathers, Indian feathers, hanging from his hair. These people are so ashamed of their own culture that you try to usurp and appropriate the culture of another. He continues, they end up frustrated and without cultural roots. Why? Because they have never looked deeper into their American roots. So King is hitting on something here. Let's continue. Others seek to reject everything American and to identify totally with Africa, even to the point of wearing African clothes. Now, we go at the Pan-Africanists all the time. Ron, what is his name? Ron Daniels wears the African, some form of African dress. They have as a symbol of the Sankofa bird. Their whole organization is centered around Pan-Africanism and trying to get the United States of America to pay reparations to all Black people in the diaspora as opposed to America's descendants of slavery, right? So this is one element that we have to deal with. This Indian thing is not necessarily new, but is more widespread now with the advent of social media. King says, but this approach leads also to frustration because the American Negro is not an African. That's for those in the chat that keep saying, oh, these dudes think we Africans. We never said you were an African. You can identify with what you want to. But if you're going to cite King, well, let's cite King. He says, but this approach leads also to frustration because the American Negro is not an African. The old Hegelian synthesis, y'all heard me reference that on the last program. Y'all hear me reference that a lot. I think it's the best way to solve any problem for those that's really trying to solve problems. Still offers the best answer to many of life's dilemmas. He's not even just talking about in this sense. The American Negro is neither totally African nor totally Western. He is Afro-American, a true hybrid, a combination of two cultures. Who are we? We are the descendants of slaves. We are the offspring of noble men and women who were kidnapped from their native land and chained in ships like beasts. We are the heirs of a great and exploited continent known as Africa. We are the heirs of a past of rope, fire, and murder. I, for one, am not ashamed of this past. My shame is for those who became so inhuman that they could inflict this torture upon us. So Dane Calloway, don't ever cite my ancestor, Dr. King, in your charade and your shenanigans and trying to prove that we are somehow Native Americans and that Dr. King uses this pseudo-logical line of reasoning that you employ to bolster up your claim.
And I need you to do something real quick, bro, before we open up. Pull up two definitions, if you can.
No,
I want you to pull up the definition, if it's possible, unless you want me to just share the screen. I could do it.
Oh, I mean, it don't matter. You could pull it up. Or I could pull it up.
Yeah, the online etymology dictionary. Pull up the word Aborigine.
Okay.
Aborigine. I want to look at that, and then I also add after this we're going to look at the word Aboriginal from the regular dictionary, because I want people to see this. It's important. I think it's important to the conversation to help contextualize what we're talking about. What happened to brother? Where did he go?
I'm here. I had to blow my nose.
All right. No doubt. Yeah. So here's the definition of Aboriginal from the online etymology dictionary. Now, again, people understand something. Before the Moors made etymology a thing, nobody was on it like that. But let's look at this.
Hold on, Ali. Hold on, bro. 1 second. Okay. A brother asked the question, what page is that in the, where do we go from here, chaos or community book? Okay. I'm looking at an ebook online in Google Books, and it doesn't have the page numbers, unfortunately, brother.
Yeah, keyword it though. If you have, he might have the actual physical.
I'm going to put the link to that book in the chat. Some of the pages are limited, but that particular page obviously is not. Yeah, go ahead, brother Ali.
Yeah, so here let's read Aboriginal. It says because there's a certain part that I really want to get to. Person, animal, or plant that has been in a country or region from the earliest times. 1858, mistaken singular of Aborigines. 1540s, Aboriginal is considered the correct singular in English, from Latin Aborigines, the first inhabitants, right? And I'm going to go to another source to give you more context, but the guy's saying stick with the same etymology dictionary, but I'm trying to give you context, especially of Latium, hence the first ancestors of the Romans, possibly a tribal name or from or made to conform to the Latin phrase ab origine, which means literally from the beginning. Like some people will make the argument that aborigine means away from the beginning, so we don't say aboriginal, we say native, whatever, it's all the same thing. These are synonymous terms. This is from ab, off or away from. See ab, ablative of origo, arise, commencement, beginning, source, descent, see, this is what it's about. Descent and lineage, birth. From stem of oriri, arise, be born, be descended, receive life. See origin, right? So now do this for me, because I want people to see that this is about lineage. I wanted them to see that this is about lineage, right? And descent. And you have multiple lineages at work. Do me a favor, pull up the definition of the word Aboriginal, just in Google, in a regular Google search, right? And I say the regular Google search because Google uses Oxford as their source, right? Oxford, for those who are into lexicology, people know that Oxford is considered the scholar's book. So that's why Google uses Oxford as its source. So let me know when you pull up the word Aboriginal. I want people to see something.
It's up,
All
bro.
right, so Aboriginal, inhabiting or existing on the land from the earliest times. This is what it said about Aborigine, same thing. From the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists. Indigenous. They're showing you that the word indigenous and Aboriginal are synonymous terms, right? Indigenous, native, original, earliest, first, initial, ancient, etc. There are more synonyms, but these are the ones that they have here. If you hit that arrow, it'll drop down. You'll be able to see a couple of more. But if you really want to see more synonyms for the word Aboriginal, you can pull up a thesaurus, look up the synonyms for the word Aboriginal, and what you will find is that indigenous and native and original and first and all of these things are actually synonyms, or primordial, autochthon, etc. These are synonyms for the word Aboriginal, meaning in this context, before the arrival of colonists, right? So we're not making the argument that there weren't some people of dark complexion here before the arrival of colonists. That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying. We're not even saying that you're not connected to some of those dark-skinned people that were here before the arrival of colonists in the Americas. That's not what we're saying. But the point is, if you're going to say we, now you have to actually prove that, because Dane Calloway says 98% of African Americans have no African ethnicity, and he never provides any proof. That's the problem. That's the problem. And like Dr. King said, we are a mixed people of multiple lineages. Dr. King is saying the same exact thing that I started out with when I opened up. We have multiple lineages, and y'all are trying to deny that there is any kind of African lineage in you when your phenotype dictates something completely different. You can pull up a picture of the Arawaks from out of Haiti, right? Haiti being the original name of the place called Haiti. The Arawaks, who had a couple of sub-tribes underneath the Taino and another one. But the bottom line is, you can't prove that that's what you are. You got to prove that. That's that. And if you do, that's your business. But that doesn't have anything to do with me. You can't pull up the Arawaks and pretend that the Arawaks are who Native Black Americans come from with no proof. You haven't done my lineage. So when Dane Calloway says we, or when Tashariq Bey says we, or when Ali Muhammad says we, or when Alim Bey says we, they're talking about the same tribe of people: Native Black Americans, African Americans, ADOS, foundational Black Americans.
Hold on, bro. Hold on. I mean to cut you, but I think young Pharaoh teaches this nonsense too, to some degree.
Young Pharaoh, whoever, it doesn't matter. The point of it is, when you say we, you're making a broad general statement about an entire group of people that you have no knowledge of. All you can do is speak about yourself and your family. That would be the logical thing to do. That would be the scientific, that would be the smart thing to do. Don't take no absolute position about a whole group of people that you don't know anything about their background. You don't know nothing about my family. How are you going to tell me that I have no African ancestry?
Hold on, because this person, C. Ben J07, says this, right? I'm going to pull up both of his comments, or her, or whatever.
I see it.
You see, I don't have to prove that. You're making the claim that you don't have to prove. You have to prove all of these Africans were brought here. See, people are not listening, Brother Ali. They're not listening. No, obviously, this person didn't listen to a word that you just said.
Right. So here's the thing, right? There's a source from Brown University that talks about the colonial enslavement of Native Americans included those who surrendered. That's the name of the article. Y'all can look it up. Colonial enslavement of Native Americans included those who surrendered to. Study by Brown University historian who finds that Native Americans who surrendered during King Philip's War were sold into slavery. So we're not denying that, right? We're not denying that certain Native Americans were sold into slavery. But what he also says is that towards the end of his article, and this is very important because Dane Calloway makes the pseudo claim that these Indians, quote unquote Indians, that he has no problem with the name Indian, that were sold into Europe and North Africa and the Caribbean and South America and stuff, they all came back some kind of way. And those were the people that were brought here during the slave trade. These Indians, I don't know what was so special about those Indians that they wanted to just ship these people all around the world. But anyway, he says that Native Americans sold overseas. This is what the professor from Brown University is saying. Native Americans sold overseas occasionally made it back to the United States. Others died or disappeared into a wider slave market and labor force, or became established in the locations where they were sent, like the modern day community of individuals in Bermuda who claim New England Indian descent. Again, this is from a piece done by a professor from out of Brown University. His name is Professor Linford Fisher. The article, and you guys can Google this for yourself, Colonial Enslavement of Native Americans included those who surrendered to. Right? A study about the history of King Philip's War. Go ahead.
I just want to add, and you know, sometimes we get there's a sense of like I don't want to say rebellion or rejection or not really giving the proper weight to the type of research that scholars do because we feel that they're part of some type of institution or some part of some type of traditional way of thinking that it comes from the oppressor. But also it comes with that, it's like peer review, you know, resources where they can do real research.
That's right, Josh.
Instead of just Google. And then sometimes it comes with access to talking to subject matter experts. You know, it comes with budgets for them to do these type of things. And it comes with understanding how to study and how to find if information is faulty. That's an expertise level that 99% of the population probably, or maybe, I don't know what percent, but it's a high percent of the population does not have. Then that's not even including, like, for them to be at that level, they have a large, like their baseline of information for context, for background information is much larger, having spent years and years and years studying that subject and similar subjects. So, you know, I would rather take I would give more weight to scholars who have peer review works than to YouTube dudes who just you know, Google and don't cite and refuse to even cite any scholars in their research.
That's one of the things I had come to when I was in college, was the fact that these professors have access to information that you don't have access to, whether it be for the fact they just know where to look based on their training. They know where to look. They know which sources to use. There are databases that they have access to that you as a regular person don't have access to, the same way attorneys do. Attorneys have access to databases to get them case law information, commentaries on the statutes. That's why they have access to annotated statutes that the average citizen may not have access to, because the annotations are the things that they need. The annotations give them direction on how to interpret certain cases, how to interpret how certain statutes were interpreted inside of courts, different cases, where to look for other pieces of information regarding this particular statute or this particular case. So these people who are trained in these areas have access to information that you as a regular person, Googling, street scholars, you know what I'm saying? You know, you don't have access to. So Google can provide you with good information and it can provide you with bad information. But like Josh is saying, peer review is a very important aspect of it.
That's right.
It's a very important aspect of it. And Dane Calloway is not a peer-reviewed person.
Can I add one more thing? In
He
the
doesn't
same
with
way
peer-
if the same way that we won't allow somebody to represent us in a court case in that capacity, not cite, being off the street, if our life is on the line. In the same way, we wouldn't allow somebody who is coming with non verified data and trying to give us financial advice or economic advice. They're not willing to cite any of the studies that have been done by any government, like the Bureau of Labor or Federal Reserve or anything like that. They're not willing to cite anything like that, but then they want to tell you how we can do for self and all of that. In the same way, we wouldn't have somebody who knows if we got some type of terminal illness and we're trying to, or I wouldn't even say terminal illness. We have some type of health issue that we're trying to. We wouldn't let somebody to just study some stuff on YouTube operate on our body or do brain surgery or heart surgery or cancer treatment. The same way we shouldn't allow.
Hey, John. It's like you've done open heart surgery before? Like, no, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, my bad.
No, it's all good. Look, let me.
You want to open it? We and we're not going to. I'm here, bro. So if you want to go a little over the 2 hours, I'm good. We here. So if you want to open it up to these people,
I want to see. They don't know who. Some of these people don't know who we are. They are new members to the cult of the Aboriginal, Indigenous, autochtons of Turtle Island, right? So they don't know what we know, basically. And it's unfortunate, to be honest with you. And I could talk about the Moors that I used to do battle with in that organization I used to be a part of, but I'm not right now. But I want to pull something up for this brother, because he asks this question: where are the African records, not books? So I want to pull up a source of reference real quick. This is a book that I have called The Walking Quran by Rudolph Ware. I'm trying to actually get this brother to do an interview on Sonetta TV. I'm waiting for him to reach back out to me. So I'll give y'all an update on that if that goes down. So in this book, specifically, chapter 3, he, being a scholar out of the University of Michigan, who went and lived in West Africa. He lived among the people. He got direct information from the records there and the griots there, because the West African tribes kept impeccable records. Impeccable. The French tried to destroy a lot of that stuff. They recovered many records written in the Arabic script out of Timbuktu and out of Mali, because the French, for whatever reason, decided that they were going to go into Africa and destroy these records. So they hid them in wells and all of these different places. There's a database online that you can pull up as well. So, when people are asking these questions, it shows that they are not, they're not versed. They're not read. They are, it's like having a sugar addiction. And somebody's telling you, if you keep eating that sugar, eventually you're going to get cavities, all of your teeth is going to rot, your health is going to become bad, and they have a sugar addiction. That doesn't matter to them. All they want is the taste of the sugar. And that stuff that Dane Calloway and all of these other guys, Young Pharaoh and the rest of them that teach that we are indigenous here or whatever, that stuff is sweet to the mouth, but it is bitter to the belly. And that's a fact. It's a fact.
If I could,
that's one of the things that we're proving tonight.
If I could, I would just say this. You pulled up an article before, and there are a number of articles online of African leaders apologizing for their people's role in the Atlantic slave trade. And in particular, there was one from the Chicago Tribune, I believe it was, where the then leader of the nation that's now today called Benin in West Africa, formerly the Kingdom of Dahomey, the nation called Benin, official apologizes for the role in the United States slave trade. And if we could, you should read a little bit of what this African leader had to say about the role of his people's role in slavery, in the slave trade, so that African Americans, being the ones who have been cut off from the information, can actually see what the people on the African continent have to say about what happened on their continent.
All right, we have it pulled up. right on cue. It says, let's start from the beginning. Officials from the West African nation Benin apologized during a ceremony here for their country's role in once selling fellow Africans by the millions to white slave traders.
Come on.
The group is making several stops in Virginia and Washington, D.C. to publicize President Matai Kariku's, and I could be saying that wrong.
Matthew. It's Matthew.
Matthew Kariku?
Yeah.
Matthew Kariku's recent apologies for his country's participation in the slave trade. We cry for forgiveness and reconciliation, said Luke Nakaja, Minister of Environment and Housing for Benin. The slave trade is a shame, and we do repent for it. Benin, a country of 4.7 million people, was called Dahomey in the 17th century, when it was a major supplier of slaves for white exporters shipping from what was called the Slave Coast. Some accounts say Dahomey rounded up more than 3 million people for sale to slave traders. Let's go back to what Dane Calloway said. He said the whole slave trade story was given to us all in reverse. A mass colony of Africans were not shipped from Africa to America. The truth is that Black Indians were shipped from America to Europe. Then they were shipped from Spain to Africa as commodity for African resources. This doesn't make any sense. The Dahomey.
And then, and then they were shipped from Africa back to America as African. They was identified as African Americans and then sent from Africa back to America. So these, go ahead, bro. This, oh my God.
People, do you not see how silly this stuff is? That the slave trade was the Dahomey in many of these African nations. There are tales of princes like Abdul Rahman, of Joseph bin Ali out of South Carolina. There's another prince that was captured from North Africa. If he wasn't a prince, he was from Lord Omar ibn Said. Like they
hey,
my
bad, bro.
Huh?
I just gotta add real quick. So so these people, the native, what do you call them? The autochtons and the indigenous, and whatever, the Indians, whatever you want to call us, that we were supposedly. When did we convert to Islam? Did we develop Islam in America originally, or did when they sent us back over from here over there, did we convert to Islam over there en masse, and then bring Islam back over here? Like what? You know, how did that work?
Facts.
Yeah, the records say it was only 380,000 Africans shipped to North America. Now, yeah, but that's just North America.
Wait. Let's stop there. Original one. Hear us out, brother. During the time of slavery, so we start with the first landing of the 21 and 1619. These people weren't slaves in the way that we view slavery today, right? Or what it became, I should say. These were indentured servants. Over time, we find that slavery becomes what we know it to be. This 380,000 that were brought by slaves. Now, we don't know necessarily who came as servants first, et cetera, et cetera. There was also illegal slave trading going on. They were still going to
after it was outlawed.
Outlawed slavery to bring
That's
back
right.
hundreds of people at a time. Hundreds at a time.
And don't forget, brother, don't forget, before the British colonies, you had the Spanish colony called New Spain.
That's right.
Several hundred thousands of black people that came on their own as people, and these were people of African descent. They were not no Indians. They were people of African descent that came along with the conquistadors. Y'all can look this up.
That's
the black conquistadors. This is in the late 1400s to the early 1500s. These people started coming.
That's right.
And some of them came on their own, and some of them were slaves. There was a huge slave colony under the Spaniards before the British even came to North America. So we can't even forget about that. People of African descent. So when you start thinking about how our numbers got bigger, you have to include that, because the British or the Anglos are going to tell it from the 1619 narrative. They don't want people to know that before the British came here to make their colonies on the east coast of what is North America, that the Spaniards and the Portuguese were already here, and that people of African descent were already coming here and were already being brought here for at least 100 years before the British even came. Go ahead, bro.
Let me say another thing too. If people are trying to figure out how did they take a little bit of people, well, what relatively, what they would say is a little bit of people in regards to how many people that they say was on the books or estimated as brought from Africa to the Americas. In regards to North America, is because you got to understand the institution of slavery especially once the transatlantic slave trade was made illegal. That's when they ramped up the breeding. That's when they ramped up the breeding, where by the time a woman, enslaved woman was, I want to say was like 24 years old, no, 26 or 27 years old. She didn't already had like 10 children. They made it to where you were constantly pumping out babies. So yeah, I read in a book, I can't remember which one, but don't quote me on the year. You can go look that information up. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it was like you were constantly for 10 years, 12 years, you were constantly pumping out babies. That's just, because think about it. The most expensive asset, the most valuable asset that you can own was a slave with 3 years of field training. It was more valuable than a house, more valuable than the railroads. It was the most valuable asset you could own. You could, take a loan out against it. You can borrow against the future earnings or the future yield of that slave. So, if you want to think about the incentive that you could have for breeding more, it's like, what if you could breed every year? You can make a new house, or every year you can make a new huge stock portfolio just by mating two of your other houses are mating. See, you can't breed a house like that, right? So, but that's what they did with us, and it was heavily incentivized. See, in other places, it wasn't incentivized because they just had the numbers. They said, well, if y'all die, it is what it is, and that wasn't really their strategy. In America, it was systematized like that, or mechanized, whatever you want to say, to where it was highly efficient, and they, nowhere else in the world was it producing the yield of crops and the yield of whatever that they were doing, whether it be railroads, cotton, tobacco. That's where the tea, whatever, all of that stuff was producing at a high rate. So they needed to pump out more bodies that they can train to be, those type of servants. But back to y'all.
All right. So what I want to do now, and I'm glad we touched on that. When people keep saying, yeah, but they only brought over 388,000 again, it shows the deficiency that you possess in American history, and you don't know about the slave breeding farms. I mean, they were breeding certain people together to see if they could produce a certain type of woman with certain types of breasts. Like, y'all, like, where are y'all at in real live information? Y'all need to come over here and build with Be the Power. Somebody left a long comment from the Facebook chat. It was, I don't know if it may have been too much to bring up. All right, there you go. I'm gonna try to read some of it. Yo, he said, Naheem Way L, I got to keep it real with you and the BTP family. I'm from Texas, and I am a 7th-generation Texan. So my family has been here since the Mexican-American War. And I have to tell you guys, the work you all are doing to demystify and clear up the timeline of our history is nothing less than phenomenal. You brothers are doing the deep work to make our lineage crystal clear and distinct from everyone else's, and I personally salute you. So, you know, like, come on over to BTP. We don't have thousands and thousands of followers and thousands of views, but I assure you that you're going to get the facts here. You are going to get the facts over on Be the Power. And if there's anything that we may be off on, because that may happen a time or two, best believe we'll come back and correct ourselves. But ask Dane Calloway to do a rebuttal video to this one. Challenge him, for those of you who follow Dane Calloway and his line of logic and reasoning. Ask him to do a rebuttal video to the video that we're doing tonight. And what we'll do in return, we'll oblige and simply come back and show you all that you're being duped by this way of thinking. You're being duped. So here's my ancestry, right? Here's a breakdown. I did the little DNA test. That's me, Sheikway L. Okay. So let's break this down. Sub-Saharan African, 88%, 88.9%. Basically 89% Sub-Saharan African. Out of that 88.9%, I am 70.9% West African. Nigerian, 25.4%. Ghanaian, Liberian, and Sierra Leonean, 24.1%. Senegambian and Ghanaian, 9.3%. Broadly West African, 12.1%. Congolese and Southeast African, 17.8%. Out of that 17.8, I am Angolan and Congolese. And these are the people that were brought over here, the Senegambian, the people on the Guinea coast, the people from Angola. Like, there's records from Africa, from these places that still exist. Stories that's not only passed down in the written record, but from the griots there that spoke about the white man coming. The cowrie, what was it? The cowrie shells?
That's right, the cowrie shells.
They would sell you for cowrie shells because there was something about them going out to sea. I can't remember the whole story, right? I got some European in the family, 9.8%. And my mother said, hey, none of that come from her side of the family. So shout out to my mother. 8.9% of that is Northwestern European. French and German, 4.2%. British and Irish, 2.0%. These are the slave masters, right? Back in those days. Right here in America, that were mixing in our sacred bloodline. That's what they would do. Okay, now let's get to the East Asian and Native American part. Only 1.1%. So they tie in East Asian and Native American, I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it's because they share certain what is it called? There's certain genetic information. and I believe some of them belong to the same haplogroup. You can identify certain genetic markers within East Asians that you can within Native Americans. So it says Chinese.
Based on certain phenotype, you could see that certain quote unquote Native Americans are of
That's
Mongoloid,
That's
you know,
right.
so-called Mongoloid descent. You can see it.
That's right. The theory of the Bering Strait comes to mind, you know, for those that know about that. So it gives a breakdown. So, but look where it says Native American. Native American, it says 0.5%. I got more Chinese and Indian, Indonesian, Thai, Khmer, Myanmar in me than I got Native American base. Well, it's a tie. It's a tie. 0.5%. 0.5. Everybody DNA test that look like us in America is going to come back like this, which is why people like Dane Calloway is scared to take the DNA test. Period. 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 Take the test. That's all you got to do. Don't tell us that is wrong. Go ahead, Brother Ali.
They're obviously going to show you that if you have some Native American, it's going to show you. It'll show you something. So don't think it's a conspiracy against Native American ancestry, because, you know, here you have Brother Naheem, who was a quote unquote Black American, and they're showing him, hey, you got some Native American ancestry in there, right? So don't be scared of that. It's not a, you know, they're not going to say no, you don't have any. If they find something, they'll say something about it, right? But it is what it is. It's a small percentage, depending on the ones that the particular tribes that they have genetic testing from. So that's what it is. But go ahead. So are we gonna open? What we gonna? Oh, you got some more? Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm not gonna really get into a lot of this. You know, I just wanted to, you know, just touch on, like, you know, maternal haplogroups. My maternal, like, this is my mother's line, right? So and people keep saying, I see what they're saying in the chat, like, you know, these genetic tests don't tell you. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They tell you a lot.
They tell you who you. Yeah.
See, what they're trying to do, Brother Ali, is they're trying to
deny Africa.
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to do.
So remember the guy Kittles that came up with the African ancestry DNA. He got us some hot water for trying to bring specificity, right, to a person's direct tribe in Africa. You come from Nigeria and you are a part of the Igbos of Nigeria, like, you know, for an example. And what happened was other tests didn't say that. That didn't discount the fact that the tests mapped the genomes of the people who are in Africa, in those regions, and still live there. It didn't discount that. It just showed that his particular methodology was flawed. That was it. This is what gene mapping and gene sequencing is all about. Understanding people, period. There's a reason why I have dark skin and the European has light skin. Mutation, region, sunlight, lack of sunlight, fish, lack of fish. So scientists study the mutations within the DNA. And in that, they're able to create these groupings that they call haplogroups. Just research it, family. That's all you have to do. Somebody said, how about invite Dane on? Patrick Jackson.
I think we already did. But tell them that you already invited him on, and he said 90-some% of what y'all saying I don't disagree with.
That's right.
That's what he said.
That's right. Dane Calloway responded to me a couple weeks ago on YouTube. And he said, I agree with a lot of the stuff that y'all talking about. Trading War Story said, this is pseudoscience. This is what I'm saying, right? You're not a scientist. Dane Calloway has given you nothing but YouTube videos and words in the website. He's never looked under a microscope, broke down anything. He never did a genetic sequence, anything, but the DNA tests, the genetic tests are somehow pseudoscience.
Dane Calloway's not providing them with records of their family, so how is it that they trust what he's saying so much?
Facts. How
And
do
I
you
want
know?
to say this too. Like, again, what we talked about what they're trying to, the
Wait,
like.
Josh, hold on, Josh, hold on. He said, "Are
What?
you a scientist?" No, which is
That's why we
why
lean on scientists.
right, this is why we are in the mental state that we're in as a people. So the brother peep this family. I want you to come in, Josh. Let me address this because this has to be addressed. Are you a scientist? The difference between myself and Dane Calloway is I'm going to look at what the scientists say. I'm going to look at what the scientists have to say. I'm going to read what the science. That's why I pulled up 23andMe. I didn't map this myself. This is another of those cop-outs, a way to slither into an escape hatch. Because I'm pointing out that Dane Calloway is no scientist. He's just telling you stuff. You come back and ask me, are you a scientist? Well, I've never made the claim. Never made the claim. I'm relying, or as Josh said, we're leaning on the science to debunk a fraud, a pseudologist, a person that makes up stuff that you all run with. Instead of asking the question to yourself, damn, is Dane a scientist? You come back and ask me the question because you're scared to face the fact that you've been duped. Because if you face that fact, then you would have to shed the reality, the fantasy, the escapism that you feed yourself, the cognitive dissonance, or as King called it, the ambivalence of your very existence as a citizen of the United States of America. Go ahead, Brother Josh.
So I don't know if we touched this, but what is it exactly that they are trying to say is the remedy that America should give them, or give I'll say us, all the land? Is that the remedy? Like by you, this essentially escapism. It will allow them to make a claim that we can't make, that the government will honor, that they won't, that we can't get them to honor. Is that what they're trying to get
No,
at? I'm trying to understand.
bro.
Because go ahead.
They just hate Africans. They hate Africans.
So
Not
it
They
only
ain't
hate the
even about
Africans.
it ain't even about no solution. It's just
Nah,
about
nah.
some type of escaping the reality of the situation of that is we being in this tribe, we being a bottom caste, and so it is saying that we're autochtons and indigenous to the land. Is that removing our bottom caste status?
no,
They think so.
no.
No.
They believe it is. And again, this is why. And let me say this. This goes back to the Moorish doctrine. And I'm not saying Drew Ali per se, but this goes back to the Moorish doctrine, particularly as it was taught by people like Taj Tariq Bey, right? And again, Dane Calloway, and I'm telling y'all this, Dane Calloway did nothing but co-opt the messaging of Taj Tariq Bey, Ali Muhammad, and Alim Bey. Those guys were already saying all of this same stuff that y'all hear Dane Calloway saying, but because Dane Calloway is a younger guy, he's the one that you guys latched onto because you don't know that these Moorish dudes were already saying this same stuff years before Dane Calloway even came on the scene.
Yeah.
Years before he came on the scene.
I
They were
don't know
already
him,
saying this.
but he sound like, what is he? Is he from Baltimore or something? Is he from Baltimore or DC? Sound like he's from Baltimore or DC somewhere.
One of these
Somebody put it in
American.
the chat where he's from.
He's from one of these
All I know
American
is
cities.
he sound like he's either from Baltimore or DC. So somebody put in the chat. It's one of them. You can't be. Or I mean, when I say DC, I'm talking about DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia, or Baltimore. Somebody put
I
in the
just
chat which one. I reason I'm saying that is because like I know I used to full disclosure, you know,
Mhm.
I used to meet a lot with the Taj Tariq Bey. Yeah, see, I knew he was from DC. Oh, so I think he's from DC. My bad. I don't want to. Okay, he sound like he from up here, but um, so you know, it was a lot of that. It wasn't just the internet. It was a lot of people like locally building with that group, that Taj Tariq Bey group, especially in Maryland. And so, you know, that ideology was heavy. So I don't know where he necessarily got it from, but I know that it was a whole lot of that pseudo stuff going up over here.
of course.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want to say something about the Delaware Moors too, because they come up all the time. The Delaware Moors, because they're supposedly Indians or something too. The history of the Delaware Moors is that they descend from a Moorish prince or something like that. This is a story that they tell. They come from a Moorish prince and some Irish woman. They're a mixture between some Irish woman and some Moorish prince from Africa or Spain or something like that. So they're not what you would say Indians that were here because of Pangea that split the supercontinent and they was on this land or whatever the case is. That's not where the Delaware Moors came from. The Washita Moors is a fake group, right? The Wachita Indians don't have anything to do with these Washita Moors.
Washita, them dug among the, what is it called? Them
Dug
dug the mounds.
the Moundia. Yeah, that's fake.
That's fake. They made that up. Empress Verdia. I had to do
Verdiachi or something.
Verdiachi. I did it. I had to do a rebuttal to Ali Muhammad, who those of us that know, I called him the myth maker. He just made up a bunch of stuff. He was trying to say that the Empress was Noble Drew Ali's aunt and John Quitman, and I absolutely destroyed this guy. It was so funny because as I was putting that rebuttal together, I was laughing. Ali, I don't know if you remember that, but I was just—
I remember.
Remember, I was like laughing, like real laughter at how outlandish the claims were. And when we were matching up dates and people, I was like, these people are sick, man. These people are sick. I want to do one more thing before we get up off of here.
Yeah, I just want to say this. This ain't no hate. This ain't no hate. Like, you know, look, just because you are invested in some type of falsehood, that doesn't mean that people who are speaking the truth, who have done years of debunking, that know better, and when we say it, that doesn't mean we're going at you. That just means you need to verify what we're saying and not be so invested and mostly tied to information. You should be tied to principle, and you should be more concerned with getting it right than somebody correcting what you think is right. Because that's how we are. We don't claim to know everything and be all knowing and got all the answers. We're trying to get the answers, and we're trying to refine our position. We don't have to be right. We all the time. You know, as far as we want to make sure we, you know, do to the best of our ability, get the right information. Yeah. We try to show improve amongst ourselves. You know, even like y'all don't know, but when we build amongst ourselves, when we come out with when we talk to each other about information that ain't right and exact, we clean each other up. So when we come to y'all, you know, we already then came correct.
All right, so this is what I want to do before we get up off of here. This is simple, man. Like I said, this is, you know, we've been doing this for so long.
What happened to the dude that was supposed to come on?
I don't know. Maybe I should have hit him up, but he rocks with Ali Muhammad and a lot of that Aboriginal indigenous stuff. So I didn't hit him up, but you're right. I don't know if he would have came on though. But here's my family tree, right? It's my father is here in the blue green, and my mother is here in the pink. Right? Because at the end of the day, lineage is what matters. So I know the stories that were passed down to my mother that she passed down to me, which is the majority of people here in the United States of America identify themselves as Black Americans or African Americans. So there's my mother's mother right there. There's my mother's mother's mother and father right there. They're my father's mother and father. And I have one more that I'm still trying to get some more information from on my father's side. All trace back to slavery in the United States of America. So I'm going to click on my father's side of the tree. So it's my father's mother right here, my mother's mother right there, her mother and her father right there. Again, all tying back to slavery in the United. Like, this is what we're going to ask you, because y'all, I see people that saying we're the pseudos in the chat, that Dane and the people that promote this Aboriginal indigenous stuff are the truth tellers. Well, I just showed you two pieces of evidence from me, right? One is, let me see. I think the brother just hit me up too, Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, yeah, he hit me up a minute ago too. Damn, my bad. All right. Look, I've given two pieces of evidence. One is a system used to map genetics. Somebody said it can't tell you that you're 25% Nigerian. It don't matter.
But that's not what that tree is supposed to do. The tree is a tree about lineage and showing you the people that you're connected to.
No, not this one. Not what you talk about, the 23andMe?
No, I'm talking about your tree that you're showing right now. Your family tree.
Not on this one. On that one, it's people that's talking about the DNA. They have issues with it because a lot of them want to hold on to a lot of the false notions. Some of them, either way, the genome is mapped to people in Africa. So you can say percentages, whatever. If you don't have any science to counter that, none, you are not qualified to refute it. You have to put up science to refute the genetics. You have none. You have people that spew baseless rhetoric. Then I put up my family tree. My mother here. Let me click on it again. And my father right next to her. I'm down here with my sisters and brothers and my children and the mothers of my children and my children on this tree as well. But it's my mother and my father right here. Can trace them all the way back to the times of slavery. And I know that they were enslaved because my mother has the stories that was passed down to her from her ancestors. Now, this isn't an anomaly because you may be able to find one or two people that will say they were a part of this tribe or that tribe. But if you go back and watch this live stream and watch the video that we played in the very beginning, you will see that many of those blacks or so-called blacks were enslaved to the 5 civilized tribes. Like, there are scholastic articles written on this. These were slaves.
That's what makes sense because the 5 civilized tribes were East Coast tribes. And the East Coast, from between Georgia, South Carolina, and Louisiana, these were the 3 like major slave ports. So it would make sense that our interaction would be more with the so-called 5 civilized tribes. And anybody who researches them, you'll find that they were in fact slave owners of people of African descent. That's a fact. And so a lot of times your connection to the 5 civilized tribes, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, whatever, is because you might have some mixture there, but it was because they were enslaving people of African ancestry, and you might be the product of that mixture where they was, some of your ancestors was their slave, but that doesn't mean you're not connected to them. It just means you're connected to them by way of slavery.
That's right, by slavery. You people are. But we're the pseudos. We're the fakes. Because that's what people are doing in the chat right now. And it's understandable. Your reality or your perception of what you believe perhaps is truth is being shaken up right now. But the history doesn't lie. The history doesn't lie. The historical records, the people that gave their own testimony, again, go back and watch the beginning of this live stream and you are going to see. I mean, this article says this. Let me see, man. Let's get into this. Okay. I used to like history, Smith told the crowd ruefully. And sometimes I still do, but not most of the time. Most of the time, history and I are frenemies at best. In the case of the Trail of Tears and the enslavement of blacks by prominent members of all 5 so-called civilized tribes, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, Smith went one step further, likening the ugly truth of history to a mangy, snarling dog standing between you and the crowd-pleasing narrative. Obviously, Smith said, the story needs to be, that the enslaved black people and soon-to-be exiled red people would join forces and defeat their oppressor. But such was not the case. Far from it. The 5 civilized tribes were deeply committed to slavery, established their own racialized black codes, immediately reestablished slavery when they arrived in Indian territory. After the Trail of Tears, they reestablished. Go back and watch the video in the beginning. They're talking about that. Rebuilt their nations with slave labor, crushed slave rebellions, and enthusiastically sided with the Confederacy in the Civil War. These are the 5 civilized tribes. Who do you hold your allegiance to? You dishonor your ancestors when you talk this Aboriginal, Indigenous. We are not from Africa. We are the natives here, the true Native Americans. You dishonor. You bring dishonor to your ancestry, and you don't understand why we keep getting whipped. We don't know how to invoke the spirit of our ancestors because we are ashamed of the history. You believe that you descend from copper-colored Americans. The copper-colored Americans ain't us. They are not us phenotypically. They are not us genetically. They are not us. They are not our ancestors. In fact, many of them, the prominent among them, the so-called 5 civilized tribes, sided with the Confederacy. Why? Because
that's right.
War was over slavery. You people,
Yeah.
you are cowards. Y'all are cowards. We gotta call it for what it is. A bunch of cowards that are scared to get up and do and be political because you don't understand.
That's where I'm going.
Understand pseudo. You can speak pseudoese. You understand that stuff. But when it's time to do something tangible, where are you? What has Dane Calloway, Taj Tariq Bey, Ali Muhammad, Alim Bey, Young Pharaoh, Asir Dukatir, anybody that pushes this, we're native to the land, we're the true Aboriginals, what have they done to it? Because Young Pharaoh says that he would be challenged on anything, which is funny because he ran from me. He ducked the smoke when it came to me. He talk about, oh, I'm the best scholar, the best truth teller. Oh, if that's true, come to BTP. Matter of fact, I'll go sit on Young Pharaoh show. Tell him to set the show up and send the link. That's all.
Yeah. What I want to say is that's my thing. Like what we've been focused on is politics, and I don't see that angle. It seems like they're more so trying to avoid doing politics or find some kind of sidebar or side entry into some type of benefit. Like you're going to trick somebody or use some type of technology to get some type of benefit. Look, if we're native, if we're Aboriginal, indigenous to the land, okay, how does that help us politically? If we okay, that's what we are. If you want to say that's what we are, we're going to use that we thing again. Yeah, but we're still having that original tie. We're still the bottom caste of America. We still only have what 2-3% of the wealth of America. We still have on the road to zero wealth by 2053. That was prior COVID estimations. Now with COVID, who knows? We're still dying of COVID at a higher rate.
Hey, bro.
We all these socioeconomic
can Mike
metrics,
Easton come on? Can Mike Easton come on? Because he's been saying a whole lot in the chat. Can he come on?
Yeah, let him come on. But when you come on, don't come, come respectful, come concise, and don't come just like repeating a bunch of stuff that we didn't already debunked in this program and other programs before. Bring some sensible. If you got some pushback, okay, cool. Bring some sensible discussion. But my point is, what are you talking about politically? That's talking about bringing remedy to our situation, right? What are you talking about? Are you talking about reparations? And then how can we get reparations when are you denying slavery? Are you associating us? Are you dividing us into some of these other tribes now that we would have to that they would have to be the recipients as being a nation now? They would have to be entered in a reparations claim. They would have to check with their treaties that those nations might actually be the ones that owe us reparations, and the government might like, y'all gotta include them too, and they ain't got nothing. Like, what is the remedy? I haven't heard people talk about what we stand to gain by doing that. All I hear is like it's just an alternative perspective that helps you feel good. It's like, oh, now I'm woke. Now I know information that most of y'all Negroes don't know. Y'all don't know that we was original people. Like, okay, well, how in the world does that help us get off the bottom? That's what I'm trying. That's the conversation we trying to have in 2020.
Let me say something to Mike Easton, because he's making excuses. Everything that he says he can't find a person who was a slave. Let me tell you something. let me just say this. Most African Americans are going to have a problem finding slave ancestry. You know why? Because the slaves before 1865 were not they were not listed by name in the federal census. They were listed by number in the slave schedules, not by name. So you're going to run into what they call the brick wall of 1870, because pre-1870, 1860, 1850, 1840 census, it becomes very difficult to find enslaved ancestors in the record because they did not list those people by name. The only people go ahead.
Chill. I got one for him. Chill. Part 1 of Hear from the Former Slave. These are people, I ain't gonna play this whole thing. These are people who were enslaved, that were freed during the time that recording devices came out and were able to tell their story.
My name is
This is kind of low, but this is Isaac Mosley speaking right here, telling his story.
Ray. My master was named Louis Mosley. My mistress was named Blanche Mosley. Well, are you ready for me to talk? Well, that's fine. And
like, I'm not even going to play the whole thing. The point is to show, if you go on YouTube and just simply type in slaves tell their story, you're going to find video after video after video. So these people are, every time they try to make a excuse, every time they try to gnaw a hole in the wall, okay, here we got Mike Easton.
What's going on, brothers?
Let's get it in.
Yeah, hold on, y'all. What's up, y'all? How y'all feeling?
Peace. We good.
Peace.
Good. And
How you?
and this is what I want. I tell everybody this, right? We have to always remember, first of all, indigenous peoples around the world. You see what I'm saying? People, modern science, right
Wait a
now.
minute, hold on. Give us a break. I don't want to cut you, but when you come on here, we like to be specific. When you say
Modern
indigenous
science.
people around the world, give us a breakdown of what that
Okay,
means.
so first of all, we got to go back to every landmass have their original indigenous peoples. Period.
Okay.
Right? And even Europeans will tell you, first of all, that when they went to every single landmass, as far as indigenous peoples go, all of these people were people of color. Okay. Got to understand one thing. The people that came over who were Asian, who people consider Native Americans or Indians, were not the original peoples. Okay. Those peoples came.
Wait, hold on. Let's stop right there. Because we want clarity. You said the people that came over were Asians. What do you mean?
No, they were not the original people.
So wait a minute. Let's be clear. Let's stick to the Asians.
Yeah.
Who you said the Asians came over? When
Genghis Khan. Genghis is horde, his people.
Okay, so Genghis Khan's horde came to America.
Yes, they came over.
Okay, so they came over here and they established themselves in America.
They tried to establish themselves in America, just like the Vikings tried to establish themselves in America.
Okay. Let's stick with the Asians. Let's stick with Genghis Khan.
I mean, they all came in. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so who were the original people over here?
Now, again, you have the original people who are a dark people, who are a melanated people, who are a curly haired, right?
So you mean
understand this? There were multiple different hair textures as far as these original people.
Okay, that's cool. So, but you mean what is commonly the people commonly accepted by the term black people, correct?
Yeah, well, yes, obviously, yes. Now, and I will say this, Africans definitely came over. No one's not denying that. No one's not going to deny that.
On slave ships.
But they ain't come over on no slave ship. And that's the thing that I'm talking about.
Okay, so wait a minute. Let's pause. Let's slow it down here.
Yeah.
So the people that came over here, I want to stick with the Genghis Khan because I need some.
That's cool.
Right? Do you have any references in so that we can pull up?
Yeah. Yes, is reference. You can check the references out. You just actually when I talk. Okay, so I used to live in Abu Dhabi. Okay. A world away. I was in contact with Mongolian Muslims. Okay. Also with African Muslims and people from around the world.
Okay.
Why? Because I used to live over there and I used to teach mixed martial arts. If you look me up, man, I used to fight in the UFC. I used to bang guys out, you know what I'm saying? So just you can check me out. But having communications with these different groups of people and learning history and learning their history about us, okay? There's a reason why they love melanated Americans.
I'm trying to follow you. So you don't have a source, you just have an oral.
No, they are books, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't think of it off the top of my head right
now. We need, bro. When you come on, when you come to BTP, hold on.
Well, I'm telling you my personal experience with it.
Hold on, bro. When you come on BTP, one of the things that we are going to require is proofs, because if we're not going to stand on something if it's false.
Okay.
You're gonna say, bro, you got it. You got us. Yeah.
So we'll do it this way. We can look at Christopher Columbus' memoirs. We can look at his memoirs. We can look at his son's memoirs. Okay. We can also look at Genghis Khan's memoirs, and these are written. And I put it that way. How about that?
These memoirs. Go ahead, Ali.
I was going to say, you know what's interesting about the Columbus memoirs? First of all, there are Europeans who try to debunk whether or not those things are legitimate, right? I'm not saying they are or aren't. But the interesting thing about Columbus's memoirs, again, it's like I said in early on in the cast, A lot of this information starts with Moors. Moors are the ones who bring this stuff to the light, and people are taking it and running with it and switching it into an Aboriginal claim. The reason that Moors brought up the whole Columbus thing was because Columbus was used in those particular things that you're referencing. Columbus was referencing the people as being of Moorish stock, wearing Moorish clothing or garments, possessing spears that look like the kind of spears that were in West Africa. So the interesting thing about what you're saying is that what he was talking about in those memoirs was he was trying, what it really implies is that Africans, whether you want to talk about Abu Bakari or whoever, the implication is that Africans are the people that you're really talking about, not some Indian people or native, what we might think of as Native Americans, meaning Indians, or people who don't have any connection to Africa whatsoever. That's not what Columbus was conveying in those papers.
But we have to remember. Now, I totally agree with you as far as some of the Moors was coming over. They established trade. Now, I know this through stories from some of our ancestors down south. Okay, so I understand Moors came over here, or the so-called African melanated man came over here, but also our melanated Pacific Islanders came over here before Africans. Now that's documented. Now, and these people genealogy are not connected to Africa by blood. You see what I'm saying? Now I know this because of the old blood type.
Wait, let's stop right there.
Yeah.
This is why they have sequential DNA designations. I don't know where it starts at, L, M, N, et cetera, et cetera. Then you got the Y haplogroup, and then you have the
O is the original.
Right. So, but all of humanity's DNA traces back to the people who currently reside on the continent of Africa.
That I will have to disagree with that because the oldest bloodline is O.
If you disagree with that,
O type, O blood type.
Hold on. Do you have any science?
I mean, that science is true. O blood type is the oldest. It's the oldest. And they found the oldest blood type here in the Americas.
I'm speaking specifics of
this is true.
Because we get mutations from the oldest into what we have, right? So you may have Africans, then you may have Hindus, what could be considered Eurasians. I know they don't necessarily use that term anymore to Native Americans, to Europeans, etc. But there's a sequential line of mutations that scientists, geneticists have been able to map. So are you saying that these people developed on this land on their own?
These people they're people that have always been here in the Americas. See, that's the thing about it. Why does everyone think that someone migrated to America?
Look, I don't want
original peoples from land masses.
No, I'm not trying to be rude. And I don't want to just keep cutting you off. Right?
Wait, let me say this before we go. We just talked about Columbus's record, right? Columbus's records about these Africans. You just admitted that Africans migrated.
Some came over.
Right. And so my thing is, and not even just the Africans, but the people of Mongoloid ancestry, so to speak, Mongoloid, if you want to use that term, they migrated. The thing about it is, I'm not saying where the Olmecs came from. I don't know, because when we start talking about these old black populations, people want to point to Olmecs and Mayans, the dark-skinned people from the Mexico area or what have you. That's basically where we're starting to talk about. So at the end of the day, I don't know whether or not you personally are connected to a Mayan or connected to an Olmec family. I don't know that. The problem that you would have, is you would have to prove that kind of lineage, right? It's not for me to prove that. You would have to prove it. And the reason why we're saying Dane Calloway is fallacious and erroneous in what he's saying when he says we, as if that's a thing. We, this, that, and the third. He's ignoring how lineage actually works. When you go back to your grandparents, you're going to say you have 4 grandparents. If you look at your great grandparents, you're going to find out you have 8 of them. You look at your great grandparents, you have 16, 32 as you keep going back. So when you say we don't have lineage that links us to Africa, that's something that you cannot say without investigating each one of those lines of lineage that makes you who you are. All of those things come together and it makes Mike Easton who Mike Easton is today. To deny all of that because you might have, and I'm not saying you don't.
Yeah, right.
You might have Cherokee in your family, right? You might have Cherokee in your family.
Yeah,
but but that doesn't mean that there's no African ancestry, because I'm looking at you.
I never said that either. You see what I'm saying?
But that's Dane Calloway's claim. That's the point.
This is what I truly believe, right? I call us melanated Americans true Americans. Did some of our African brothers and sisters come over here and amalgamate in with us?
Okay,
of course they did. They had to.
When you say we're the true Americans, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by true Americans is we are the first ones that are the true melting pot. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Now, my next question is this.
I agree with him, Abba, because remember we were talking about that with Where L earlier about who the true Americans are, but context means everything. But go ahead.
Is everything context? So do you have any sources that the people here prior to the Europeans calling this place America, or even the continents, the Americas, called it that prior to the Europeans?
It wasn't called that. It was called either. It was a couple different. It was called Turtle Island.
We went over that earlier. Did you catch that part?
No, I got in a little late, but it was originally called Turtle Island. Also a Mexam. You know what I'm saying?
It was never called the Mexam.
No, it was no. In Mexico, no. See, I know this,
bro.
And that's the thing,
bro. We know this.
I'm sure you do know, but I'm also telling you a little something.
This for about 11 years.
Mexico was a part of it because of Mexico.
Not a part, according to Noble Drew Ali's teachings.
Noble Drew Ali was a Cherokee.
Okay, but he wasn't a Cherokee. But hold on.
No, he was in his documents.
Hold on, bro.
It's true.
Where do you find the name of Mexam outside of Noble Drew Ali?
Say that one more time.
Where do you find the name of Mexam outside?
Yet again, the She people, the tribes down in Mexico.
Give me a reference.
Came up with the She people.
They did not.
Yes, they did. How you gonna say? You just sitting? I'm letting you know. I talk to the people.
Give me a record. Give us a record. Right,
it's no record. I communicate with the people, my friend.
All right, hold on, bro. Hold on.
It's oral. It's oral.
So everything the brother Mike Easton has no records to give. Everything he said.
Saying records. I mean, have you been to Brazil?
Hold on. I gotta mute you, bro. Hold on. Because you're talking over me. It's confusing right now. Look, you have no records. You're trying to tell people that are Moorish scholars. I don't know if you know who we are. We are Moorish scholars over here. We wrote the book on Noble Drew Ali, and we broke down a lot of that stuff. I mean, bro, you on mute, bro. We can't hear you right now. You on mute. We broke down a lot of that stuff. We know what Noble Drew Ali said about a Mexam. Outside of Noble Drew Ali, the word of Mexam doesn't exist. He specifically said that the name of Mexam was confined to Africa. He never called it America, ever. Not once.
That's a fact.
Okay, legendary top cats. What do you have to say, brother?
Peace. Yeah, man. You know, I got a question for you. When the European came here, the African got here by way of the European. Let me ask you that question. In your studies, do you feel like the African got here by way of the European?
Well, Van Sertima says they came before Columbus.
Facts.
Michael Imhotep.
Okay, now
David Imhotep. I'm sorry, David Imhotep in his book talks about how Black people were here, or people of African descent were here before Europeans, and some did come with the Portuguese and the Spaniards. You can look up the Black conquistadors.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the Black conquistadors. We use Juan Garrido, which was a North African. I'm familiar with that. Okay, we'll use Ivan Van Sertima, but they came before Columbus. Well, in that he didn't prove what he didn't prove that Africans came here, because one of his claims was that pharaohs from the 25th dynasty came here and established the Olmec or the civilizations down in Mexico. You feel me? Which is not true. That was never proven.
Look, let me say this. That may be false, but the bulk of what he presents in that book.
Exactly. You know, I'm with you on that. He's correct on that. Exactly.
What the Europeans said about the people. They said they were what they described as Ethiopians over here, right?
Yeah. Van Sertima was inspired by Leo Weiner.
Exactly. All right, now my question is though, when the Europeans got here, who were the first people that they were in contact with?
Well, according to their records, the Native Americans. These were the people.
Are you familiar with what group of Native Americans it was that they met?
Not all.
What group of Europeans?
Not all.
Well, the book that we have talks about the Amaru people.
All right. Well, hey y'all, can I share my screen? Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, man. You know, when it comes to this,
I'm gonna pull up this comment. Somebody named Drock 1030 said, "What's funny is Lord Abba wrote a book on Moors from Mount Meru. There's plenty of documents stating America was once known as Meru. How funny is that?" Okay, let me address this real quick. First, I didn't write a book on Mount Meru. I wrote a paper, a theoretical piece, on that's called "Are the Moors Descendant from the Ancient or Sacred Mount Meru?" I can't even remember.
Mount Meru.
Sacred Mount Meru. I never said that America was Meru. The word was Meropes, 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 first and foremost. The name Meropes connects to the name Meru and Meroe and of ancient Egyptian fame, etc., etc. You know, like, if you're gonna cite me correctly, because even in that paper, it has nothing to do with any frivolous claims that we are the true indigenous Americans. Like, I mean, come on. I had to address that. All right, what do you have up on the screen? Let's take a look.
All right, when the Spanish got here, these are the people that they came across. These are the Tamiqua people. All right, these Tamiqua people, they're what you call a Muskogee stock down south. This is the Mississippi mound builders, and so if y'all
which Europeans are you talking about though?
Well, this
because
was
the Europeans
the Spanish that came and settled in Florida. All right,
yeah.
This was the first contact.
Before you start, I just want to say that they did not come to North America first. So
I'm asking when I'm talking about when they got to North America.
Okay.
When they first came to North America.
Okay.
Because that's very important if we're talking about the people specifically in North America. All right. And so the first people that they bumped into was the Tamiqua people. And now this is their statue. This is how they depict the people. Now, when the British first got here and settled in the colony of Virginia, named after Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, they came with the company of the Virginia Company of London. All right. Later, the Stuart family, King James, and them ended up taking over their company. And later, his grandson started the Royal African Company.
Okay, no. Look, this is good. I see Mike Easton in the back because he didn't bring no sources, but he's co-signing everything right now. I don't know if you're confusing what we're saying here. I'm not sure.
All right, let's all right. What you need to be clear on, what need to be edified.
The purpose of tonight's live stream is to prove that we are not just these natives to America. That 98% of our people don't have African ancestry. We only have this American ancestry that Dane Calloway made. I've done a lot of the research that you're pulling up. I've done that statue I've seen associated with something else. but that was
associated with what? Because this Camp Powhatan in the Virginia
not
Library.
the one prior.
All right, Tamiqua. All right, now a lot of Moors try to use this, but this is a Tamiqua Indian, and this right here coming from the Jacksonville Historical Society. So y'all can pull it up, and it depict them. It lets you know their color, it lets you know their customs and everything.
Wait. I've done the research. I know for a fact that there were what the Europeans called Negro tribes in Florida. Remember, New York tried to hijack the identity of one of those tribes called the Yamasee. I know
exactly. Yeah, you familiar? Okay, so you familiar with the Yamasee?
But this stream is not about were black people in America.
Okay, all right. So what is? I heard y'all say something else about the 5 civilized tribes having slaves too. I can correct that for y'all too. I can help y'all out with it.
That means you would have to correct the history of the people that
no problem.
Slaves. Sure, go ahead. Let's see.
All right. Man, I'm not, y'all probably never heard of me, man, but I'm the legendary type cat. I teach Black Indian history, man. I'm the best that ever did it and got away with it. Let's walk.
You got away with it here, but let's go. Let's go.
All right, and so up here, this is who everybody depict as who is the Native American, which is a plain Indian. Is what they call a plain Indian. You can type it in on Google, PLAIN Indian. Okay, this is who the Europeans end up making the model in the face of Indians through literature and through art. Google it, it'll tell you. All right, when you look up here, this is Bill John Baker. This is the principal chief of the Cherokee Indians. How can this guy right here be the principal chief of the Cherokee Indians, right? All right, and so you pulled up something earlier, and I seen you pull this guy up. This is John Ross, the chief of the Cherokee. Now, it's important to pull him up because he was the chief for 40 years of the Cherokees. Now, these, when you talk about slavery, these are the people who had slaves, the slaves, all right? Now, this guy right here, John Ross, the son of a Cherokee mother and a Scottish father.
Wait, hold on. So all of the 5 civilized tribes then were white men, the heads.
No, I'm not saying they were white men. Now I'm about to explain what happened. When you get the 5 civilized tribe, now you just told me you was familiar with the Yamasee. Now the Yamasee had Upper and Lower Yamasee. Okay. Now the 5 civilized tribes is something that was made up that went under the jurisdiction of the United States in the Treaty of Hopewell, the Treaty of Towson, and the Treaty of Tellico, 88, 86, 91 Towson, 94 Tellico. The Cherokee tribe was created in 1794, the Cherokee government. Okay, that's just a word out of the language called Shelaki, which means people of fire. Okay, now it was hijacked through this line through Scottish and Ireland people. Okay, so this guy right here was Irish. He was 1/8 Cherokee. Didn't speak the language or nothing, but he ruled it for 40 years. How is that possible? Now we go here, this article here, 1838 Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservative Division of Archaeology. Now this tells you about these people coming here. Now you had John McDonough, who was a British agent, Indian agent. He used to sell guns down in Tennessee. Now he met the Chickamauga tribe, which would become a Cherokee tribe. Through this is where you get your Confederate flags, your Confederate tribes, and all of this, right?
Move it. Wait a minute. Hold on. Back it up. If you're going to make those claims, because you're saying that this guy was the head of an Indian tribe?
Yeah, this John Ross. You just pulled him up.
Oh, and so you said he's the guy that created the Confederate flags, etc.
Well, he didn't create the Confederate flag. What happened was his grandpa was a British Indian agent, and he used to sell guns to Dragon Canoe and the Chickamauga tribe. Now they were the ones who had that flag. That flag was originally a war flag that they carried. Now now what happened? He went.
Hold on, bro. You're making a lot of claims. So the Chickamauga tribe and this other tribe. Say it again.
All right. Now the Chickamauga tribe was in Tennessee.
I just want to hear real quick.
What's up?
I just want to hear the breakdown of the Confederate flag real quick.
Okay, all right. And so what happened was you had these people down here, John McDonough, them in Tennessee. Now they end up joining this little Moravian missionary thing that held at his house. But anyway, he found this fellow Scotsman named Daniel Ross, if you see right here, named Daniel Ross, and he used to trade with the Chickasaw Indians. Long story short, they captured him. He let the dude marry his daughter because he was a Jacobite. If any of y'all familiar with European history, he was a Jacobite from the rebellion. They all came over here as prisoners. We got them right here on the these are the extracts from the Jacobite prisoners that were taken by the French October 44.
Hold on.
Them on the boat right here.
It's running too long. Again, you're teaching something right now that we didn't debate. You
said no. You said that the Cherokee and them had people enslaved. That's true. Now,
that is a fact.
Yeah, you would have to know what happened though, because your boy Ali just said context is key. And so I just want to come up here and edify y'all that the tribes was hijacked.
But wait.
Irish.
But wait.
Besides,
so you're trying to say that these tribes only enslaved black people because Irish people took over the tribe. That's what you're saying?
I'm saying the people that enslaved them were the Scottish people. That's what I'm saying.
So it was the Scottish people inside of these tribes that actually were the ones who enslaved the black people.
That's a fact. Yeah. You want to? All right. Now, if you look up at the screen, this is LaShawn McGilvery. His son Alexander McGilvery ended up, which we got him on the Jacobite Day from Ireland. His son Alexander McGilvery he was a controversial Creek leader, 1780, 1790. These are the people who signed out the treaties that gave the Europeans the land, that ceded the land. All right, that's McGilvery right here. We got Clan McIntosh from Ireland. They came here. This is William McIntosh. He signed the Treaty of the Indian Springs down there in Georgia, and they ceded off over 23 million acres of land. They shot him 400 times. He got killed by the Black Creek Indians. All right, he had some sons. These are his sons right here. When y'all just said they signed up with the Confederate, these are the guys that signed up with the Confederate. This is Chili McIntosh Daniel. When they killed his daddy, they tried to kill Chili. He got away. When they got the Indian Territory after the Indian Removal Act, they got down there. They after they signed up with the Confederate, they forged the names of the they call them Old Creek. That was the Black Creeks. They forged the names and they attacked them. Now that's where you get the Trail of Blood on Ice. Y'all Google it, look it up. And these were where the people got away and went to the north and fought in the USCTs for the 1st and 2nd Kansas Regiment. They ended up defeating them. They defeated Stan Wadey. He was the last Confederate general to surrender. He was a Cherokee general. That
Can you pause for a minute? Because we're not. Can I say something
to him? And we 3 hours in, and he came late, so I can't spar with him the way I want to. But none of this is refuting anything that we said.
It just refuted that they had slaves. Okay, hold on.
No.
Who were the slaves that they had? Let me ask you that. Who were the slaves that they had?
I don't listen.
You want to know what slaves they had? Wait, I'm gonna let you hear it from them themselves. But go ahead, Ali.
The fact of the matter is, people were enslaved to members of that tribe, of those tribes. That's not something to be debated.
No, that's a fact.
That's so in like that. We don't have to go into the history of white men.
True.
It's true.
He said
black people, I get it, but the fact is, people who were classified as black were enslaved to members of each one of those tribes.
Facts.
Nobody denies that history. There's nobody from any of those tribes.
Facts.
Living today. But wait, hold on, because you was breaking down the history. I'm saying this, an undeniable fact, one that none of the 5 civilized tribes themselves deny, is that black people were enslaved by members of those tribes.
Facts.
Nobody denies that.
All right, but okay, now to put it in proper context, we would have to find out who were the slaves and why were they who were the slaves.
People who were classified as blacks.
To figure out who were these people.
I don't know individual names, and I don't think it's not important. It's not important to know the individual names of thousands of people.
It's not what I'm trying. Names, brother. That's not what.
But then, how do you identify them? How are we going to figure out who they were?
All right, we identify them by knowing exactly what happened in history. Are you familiar with
no.
Hold on. Are you familiar with? Hold on, brother.
Bro,
hold on. We gonna mute you. This is what we gonna do. We gonna get into some history.
And there was
we gonna get into some history. We gonna let this rock out, and then go from there. And then if you got something to refute this
The ex-slaves
direct
were called freed
testimony,
men, and the
then I'll
freedmen
throw
of the
my hands
Indians
up. And
had
this is
reason
still
to
not the
dance.
argument.
No, they weren't rich, but since they were now citizens of the tribe, and the tribe owned all the land, there was no need to sharecrop. Just stake a claim, build a cabin, start a farm. And there was the black vote. Witness this Seminole election in which they counted one candidate's supporters on the left side of the street, the other candidates on the right. To gain control of the Cherokee capital in Tahlequah, chiefs like Lewis Downing campaigned heavily for the black vote, as did Chief Spaichi.
Damn, they don't look Irish to me.
Capital in Okmulgee.
You look Irish to you, Ali?
And elected
Nah.
black judges,
No.
attorneys. They were private secretaries. They were members of the council. And of course, the 3 black towns in Creek Nation had representatives in both the House of Kings and House of Warriors.
Silas Jefferson was even elected one of the Creek chiefs and was among the delegation anytime that the Creeks had business in Washington. Since there was none of the lynchings or terror of the white South, Indian Territory became a mecca for blacks, even though many never gained citizenship. At least 25 black towns sprang up, some still around, like Taft, Redbird, and Tallahassee, where on a warm day, they still bring out the kitchen table for a game of dominoes.
I'm out of here.
What? How you get down?
I'm out of here, man. You did.
There were black lawmen among the Creek Nation Light Horse Police, deputy U.S. Marshals like Bass Reeves, who killed 14 outlaws without ever being wounded. And there were outlaws, killers like Cherokee Bill, part black, part Cherokee, or the Buck Rufus gang of Creeks and Creek freedmen. And there were the rowdies.
If they got enough whiskey in them while they shoot town up.
You ever had to run from a shootout?
I have crawled on the bed.
Now, there's a reason why let me pause this. There's a reason why I'm playing this, family. In the beginning of this video, it's breaking down what we read earlier about these people that became freedmen in this tribe being enslaved to these people first. Slaves. There's no other way around it. So you can say that it was some guy that was half Irish. It didn't matter. Didn't matter what their ethnicity was. They were slaves to these tribes, period. And the brother came on, and I'll give the brother props for coming on, and because I don't know a lot of that stuff that he brought up. That's stuff that we would have to look at and vet. That's stuff that we have to look at and vet. So, and then we'll bring the brother back on and have a discussion. But I want it to be clear. I got to be clear again. What we're talking about tonight is this frivolous claim that the majority of our people, 98% of them, are Native Americans. No matter what that brother pulled up, he couldn't prove it. Mike Easton is still in the chat. He waving his head.
Shout out to Mike Easton.
Shout out to Mike Easton. He hasn't even provided a source. I got to give whoever come with some type of sources, we got to give them props. Point blank, period. So I'm going to ask that brother, he dropped off, to hit us up with when this is over, because we passed 3 hours. We ain't gonna stay on here too much longer. I'm gonna let Mike Easton say something real quick. And man, we could probably continue this as well, but nobody is gonna prove that the majority of our people are Native Americans. And so unmute yourself, Mike Easton.
This is what I was going to say, bro. And again, like I agree with some of the things that you're definitely saying. You see what I'm saying? I can never say that I'm a pure Aboriginal from America. I can't say that. Part of my bloodline is. You see what I'm saying? But American Indians did enslave another American Indians through war, because we did have tribal wars against other tribes. You see what I'm saying?
So you were Native American.
He's saying he's mixed. He's saying he's mixed.
Okay.
Yeah, not Native American, because that's government of that's given by the government. You see what I'm saying? So
Indian is also another name that was also given by the European, who eventually becomes the government, because nobody on this landmass agreed. They got together and said, we're going to call ourselves by this blanket term. That's just not historically accurate.
I agree with that. But that's all I wanted to say, that we did enslave each other, and we enslaved white people. And I will definitely say that melanated Americans, or even some Africans or Moors that had came over, actually married into the family, and their children were chiefs. You see what I'm saying? And they had both bloodlines in them. So,
and I don't deny that. See, that's why I said, if you didn't hear the beginning, Mike, but in the beginning I said I don't take an absolute position about this.
That's right.
I can't tell you who you are in terms of your familial lineages. Your family is your family. That has nothing to do with whatever it is that I think or whatever it is that I might come up with on my research. Your family and your bloodlines are your bloodlines. I can't change that. But the point of this show was to refute Dane Calloway's broad blanket statements. That's the point that I want everybody to understand and not miss. He makes broad blanket statements about African Americans, the descendants of slavery in this country, and says that you're not of African stock, you are of Indian stock. You can't make statements like that and think that they're scientifically accurate. You can't do that. The same way that I can't tell you, Mike Easton, who your family is, Dane Calloway cannot tell me or you, Mike, or Naheem or Josh or anybody else who their family members are. Nobody can do that. I don't care what the history of the 5 civilized tribes is. I don't care whether or not there were Irishmen inside of the 5 civilized tribes. That has nothing to do with proving who me and my family is in terms of our ethnic background. None of that matters. None of it matters. It doesn't prove anything. To say that to prove that there's Irishmen inside of the 5 civilized tribes. Yeah, we know about the $5 Indians and the Dawes Rolls and all. We know about all that stuff. But that doesn't change. But that doesn't change. No, you're interested in the history of those people. I'm telling you that the history of those people that you're bringing up in your presentation does not change who I am ethnically. It's never going to change who I am.
You're right. You're right about that.
I'm gonna say about much love, y'all.
Hey, look at Mike. Hey, look at Mike. Hey, look up my channel, Mike. Come follow me. I used to be in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and shit too.
Oh yeah.
Check my channel. I got
man, that's what's up, man. I got a lot of people out there, man, that I know, man. If y'all want some smell goods, man, definitely hit them up out there about that, man. I'm trying to tell you.
no doubt.
For real. But now keep doing what you're doing, big bro, because this is how we're going. If we all could just come together, especially at times like this, regardless of what we got in our blood. Listen, we all got melanation in us, and that's one thing that connects us. So, man, we definitely got to
look. I feel you on that.
Situated.
Speak to that. Let me speak to that. Right. Somebody said we clout chasing, asking for Dane Calloway. Listen, man.
I'm not asking for Dane Calloway to do nothing. I don't need him to do anything. He doesn't. Nothing that he says validates who I am or it dictates what my lineage is. I don't care about Dane Calloway. He doesn't have to come on here.
Oh, me personally, I would love for him to come on here because I have Dane Calloway stuff. I've viewed some of his whack videos and the bogus website that we read from earlier where he misappropriates quotes from Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. And we just simply went back and showed what, at least verbatim, what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. So, I mean, he's corny, but I want to say this before we get up off here. We coming up on 3 hours and 14 minutes, right? Melanin is ubiquitous. That means that it's in damn near everything on this planet. That shouldn't be the thing that binds us here in America, right? We are United States citizens, point blank, period. Now we can tell ourselves that we're something else. We can tell ourselves that, but that don't make it true. That don't make it true at all. And even if you are, or happen to be an Indian or a Black Indian, you're still subject to the United States of America. Native Americans went out and voted for Joe Biden in this past election, while we got people denying their Americanism, saying things like, because they're Native Americans, they will not participate in what could be, not saying it is, depending on who you're voting for, their own liberation. their own liberation. So, like, we gotta keep it official here. The purpose of tonight's live stream was to point out the fact that these claims that all of us are Native Americans. And I urge you, Mike Easton and brother Legendary Top Cat, to go back and watch the beginning of this show, this live stream. Go back, because I speak to how this is being used as an escape hatch to not be participatory in what eventually could be our own freedom. Imagine if I ran for president and you took the position that, oh, I don't rock with this government because it is merely a usurper government that has no power, et cetera, et cetera. And you convinced 20,000 other people of that. These are 20,000 votes that I need from the so-called Black community to become
big bro. Didn't we help create America?
We built it.
We built it, but I thought some of us were high-ranking officials in America too, right?
Well, it just depends on what you're talking about. What period do you mean?
Well, during multiple periods. I thought in the beginning, a couple of our they established America with American Indians, Moors, and quote unquote white.
No more, but they did it with American Indians. Well, you got HR 331. That's where they Conasataga out of the under the
right. I know about that.
Gave them the Constitution. Yeah, that was the whole Mohawk Continental Congress situation. But again, these were Europeans that were mixing with these Indians in the Northeast. See, when you got the Northeast, and then you had the South. You had two different. You had the British. You had the Dutch. You had these people in the Northeast. In the South, Virginia coming through that plan. You had Irish and Scottish people down there coming down through Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. You had the French and the Spanish down there. So you had free Negroes in the colonies, and down south you had color free people of color. You had two different situations. These were two different European systems that was operating here. 1754, they had the French and Indian War. The British took over all the French territory. The Indian alliance.
Hold on.
Man, I'm gonna have to come holler at you. I'm gonna have to come holler at you, man. We're gonna have to chop it up.
Brother Legendary Top Cats. I want to get up with you off the air. Definitely not tonight. We've been sitting here for over 3 hours, so we're not gonna extend this no further. But because you're making a lot of claims that need to be vetted. You're making a lot of claims that need to be vetted, and we're not going to sit here and vet them live and in real time right now, and especially towards the end of this live stream. Again, I want to stress the purpose of this live stream was to debunk these claims that Black people are Native Americans. Period. That we didn't come from Africa. You'll never be able to get that off. I don't care.
I don't agree with that. Yeah, I don't agree with that neither.
So on that's why I said go back and watch the beginning.
Nah, I seen the beginning. Can I ask you this here then? Who do you think African Americans are?
I think African Americans are an amalgamated people mixed with multiple ethnic lineages of African, Native American, and European descent. We are a new tribe of people by way of the institution of slavery.
Facts.
That make us a new tribe. We're not exactly any one particular ethnicity.
Okay, well, I can agree with that to a certain extent. All right, now, I take my family for example. We have our ancient ancestral lands down in Louisiana, North Carolina, and Texas. Now, we have grave sites going in North Carolina all the way back to the 1600s, and Louisiana going back to the early 1800s. So in Texas, now we have Black Frenchmen, Black Irishmen. My grandma, her second great grandma was mixed with, her daddy was mixed with African. You know what I'm saying? African and Indian. So it's
now. But those Africans have names, fam. Those African have ethnic names. They're Hausa, they Hausa, they Wolof, they're Mandinka, they're Fulbe, they're a whole bunch of things.
Well, to me, the African and African American is more European than it is African, and I'll tell you why I said that. one of the biggest secrets and one of the reasons why they not giving niggas reparations is because they'll have to expose the fact that niggas have more European blood than they have African blood in them.
Some may. Some, hey, listen. Some
I'm talking about black
African
European blood.
Some African Americans may have more, like let's say, for instance, you take somebody like Alicia Keys, or you take somebody like Halle Berry, right? You take some of these mixed breed people that are clearly mixed breed, because you're not going to say Don Cheadle is more European. You're not going to say Sam Jackson is more European. You're not even going to say I'm more European than of African stock.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody's situation to be different. I'm like you, shit. I'm not gonna never tell nobody who they are. You feel me? I can just go off my who I am. You know what I'm saying?
Bro. You just kind of did. You said the reason why we're not going to get reparations is because they're going to find that many people are more European than they are.
Yeah, all right, you're right. Let me edify on that. All right, when I meant to say that was one of the biggest secrets here is that it was actually black Europeans. Like the story that they told us that white people came here, took over. Most of the first people that came here were black people. The people who set up the 13 colonies was black people. That's not true. That's easy work. That's easy work.
Brother, we gonna end this show right now. We gonna end this.
That's something else. That's
hey, no, y'all gonna have to bring me back. Then we're gonna have to talk about that if you think that was wrong.
No, definitely. I respect anybody that brings sources to me. So, but what I need you to do is, I don't know how to reach you. I don't know if you know how to reach me.
No, I don't. Every way to reach you.
You know what?
In the back chat, the private chat, you could give the information.
I'm gonna put my email in the back chat. Lord@gmail.com. Hit me up, and we're gonna go from there.
All right, bet. Appreciate y'all dropping the link. Yeah, we're gonna do that, man. I can do that easy.
We're gonna get a chance to vet your information, and then we're gonna see if we use the
scientific.
Oh yeah, that too. What's that stone called? The touchstone, right? The touchstone is when you rub the gold up on it. You could first tell if it's real gold, and secondly, be able to tell the quality of it. Is it 10 karat, 14 karat, 20?
Yeah, man, it's 23 karat, man.
Stone test.
Yeah, it's 23 karat.
All right, so look, family, thank you all. Make sure y'all hit the like button if you didn't hit the like button before you leave. This turned out to be a fire discussion. I actually like that brother legendary Top Cat. I'm gonna go back and look at some of this stuff that he brought. I love new information, but it wasn't the point that we was making tonight. My IG D Money Ali is Lord_Abba_Nahim, NYHIEM. Let me put that in the chat. So Abba_Nahim. That's my IG right there. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We got to get rid of this pseudo stuff. We got to get rid of it. At the period. We can't win. We can't move forward being pulled in a bunch of different directions. So if we don't have these battles, if we don't have these discussions, then we're not going to ever move. We're not going to ever move. Ever. So let me give Dr. Lee a shout out.
Shout out to Dr. Lily.
We're not going to ever move. So, Ali, did you want to say something before we got up off here?
No, I'm good, bro. I think we beat this horse. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say at this point.
So look, family, well, I do want to have that brother back on though. I hope he get, because you already know we're gonna fine tooth comb his information, and I want to do it now. I want to do it. We could just have a separate build on Native American blacks in America, right? Because to me, it's all relative to some point. Particularly,
shout out to all the mods.
Your shout out to the mods, definitely. Sister Riri,
love y'all
in the building. But let's have this discussion again. I can't wait for it. I look forward to it. We're not some Native Americans, as these brothers are trying to claim. We are American citizens. We are American citizens, point blank.
And our tribe is an amalgamated group of people. We're very mixed people.
Read Mariah, block her from the channel, please, family. We don't need people like that commenting, making those types of comments. Block that sister, Mariah, or whatever her name is. Block her from the
that's
channel.
crazy. She's an extremist.
Yeah, like
She's an extremist. Because
She's the
even the brothers that came on ain't carry on like that.
They ain't do that. So I'm gonna leave y'all with the show's motto, family, and that is: don't just fight the power, become the power. Stop being scared of the power. We can become the power. You just gotta know that the power exists in order for you to grab it, and the power, it exists. That's what we here doing BTP for. Be the power. Don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. With that, I say peace.